Chapter 1285. Brothers, our time has come. Fan Wu Jia had just been reincarnated as an Azura when he fell into the devil army. He saw an Azura with 9 heads and 8 arms bearing his fangs and roaring, "Kill your way into the heavens and plunder everything." Behind him, the Azura devil kings let out deafening roars, and some Azura generals beat the devil drum. The rumbling of the drum reverberated through the world. This demonic drum was formed from the tribulation power of destruction, and there were countless demon eyes on the surface of the drum, emitting beams of tribulation light of destruction that shot out in all directions, scorching everything. The beams of tribulation light shot out by the demon eyes pierced through the membranes of the worlds, destroying the structure and order of yin and yang. Wherever they went, all living beings died. On the surface of the drum, scenes of the destruction of the worlds were engraved. As the drum beat grew louder, these destroyed worlds turned into projections that appeared in the void with countless living beings who had died in the calamity, pouncing towards the surrounding worlds. The souls of countless living beings were plundered out of the cycle of reincarnation by the devil drum, and the laws of reincarnation of the worlds were cut off. The drum beat broke the cycle of reincarnation and plundered countless souls. The devil army that Fan Wu Jia was in was just an insignificant one among all the realms in the universe. Countless destructive demonic drums rang out from all directions of the sea of heaven's realms, converging into a monstrous drum formation. One of them was wrapped in black devil flames, with 1,000 heads and 1,000 faces. His 4 arms were filled with 1,000 eyes, and his lower body was made up of 9 scaleless snake tails that intertwined with each other. 4 giant hands covered all the stars, suns, and moons in the universe, and the great devil god who made the universe lose its light danced to the sound of the drum. The center of the realm sea became a dark and lightless star because of this great devil god. "Ro!" Fan Wu Jia cried out in fear. It was only when he saw this great devil god who stood in the center of the universe that he lost the ability to speak, for he could not describe such a great terror. In front of Dara, Fan Wu Jia was just an ant, but he still had the courage to fight back. And in front of this great devil god, he even lost the courage to fight back. Fan Wu Jia saw countless souls being dragged out from the reincarnation cycle by the drumming, and the Azura devils were fighting excitedly for these souls. They scooped up the water of the blood sea and splashed it in all directions. When the water of the blood sea touched the souls that heard the drumming, their souls started to distort, and one Azura devil after another were born from the blood sea, joining the devil army. Only then did Fan Wu Ji understand why he could easily blend into the devil army. As it turned out, Rahu was constantly twisting souls and transforming them into Azuras. Fan Wu Jia had seen with his own eyes that among these souls there were many Tao monarchs and heaven immortals who stood at the pinnacle of the heavens. They were exposed to the sound of the drums, but they could only wail and scream, twisting and demonizing in extreme pain. Fan Wu Jia had seen with his own eyes how all living beings had fallen into depravity, how devils had wreaked havoc, and how all living beings had been slaughtered during the doomsday tribulation. Great sorrow, great despair, great terror, indescribable terror, despair, depravity, and the aura of doomsday, accompanied by wails, roars, curses, and the beating of the devil drum of destruction, resounded through the entire universe. This intense, devilish nature tainted everything. In this doomsday aura, anyone who tried to comprehend the heavenly Tao and cultivate would be distorted by the heavenly Tao. They would wither and die, and the aura would corrupt them, turning them into demons. Fan Wu Jia's heart of righteousness, which had persisted for a long time, was crushed by this terrifying scene of the end of the universe, where all kinds of demons were dancing in a frenzy. As Road Demon Ancestor danced wildly, the first ear-piercing sound of the copper drum of destruction began to appear in the midst of the drumming. Within the drum formation of the devil drum of destruction, the first sound of the copper drum of doomsday guided the countless twisted souls. Reincarnation. They used the original law of reincarnation to infuse these souls that had been contaminated by the tribulation of destruction into those worlds. Using the law of reincarnation, which was the unity of heaven and man, and the great cycle of reincarnation, the poisonous souls that had been distorted and demonized by the sound of the devil drum of destruction were reincarnated into the myriad of worlds. It bypassed the weak defensive instincts of a world, as if it had been swallowed a mouthful of poison. Fan Wujie's hair stood on end, and he broke out in a cold sweat. The 9 questions of the Netherworld. It was definitely the 9 questions of the Netherworld. The destructive suite of Road Demon Ancestor had definitely incorporated the power of the River Styx Demon Ancestors' 9 questions of the Netherworld. The sound of the devil drum cut off reincarnation, twisting the souls of all living beings and demonizing them. The sound of the copper drum usurped reincarnation, using all living beings as poison and corrupting the world. From within, Fan Wujie could see the shadow of his own great divine ability, the cycle of reincarnation. But compared to Road Demon Ancestor's peerless divine ability, which could cut off reincarnation, corrupt all living beings, and then forcefully reincarnate the poison of all living beings into the cycle of reincarnation, demonizing the myriad of worlds, the little bit of knowledge Fan Wujie had gained was like a joke. Countless wriggling tentacles grew out of the remaining membrane of the myriad of worlds. These tentacles wriggled and wriggled, constantly piercing into the mountains, rivers, lakes, and seas within the world, injecting one flesh egg after another. The tentacles danced about within the world, injecting one twisted soul after another into the space, the earth, and the sky. More and more places within the world that had been corrupted, and the flesh eggs laid by the tentacles were densely packed, arranged in rows. One after another, the twisted and rotten devils emerged from the trees, from the bodies of the remaining living beings in the world, from the mountains, from the clouds, from all the phenomena of nature, and from the substances of living beings. Finally, accompanied by the ear-piercing, monotonous sound of a flute that made one irritated, the brass pipes and the demonic drums rang out in unison, accompanied by the sound of the flute. It was a frenzied, irritating, and demonic ensemble. Then came the suona, the pipa, and the flute. It was as if they were sending off the entire universe. Countless Azura devils, the twisted devils within the world, the devil disciples of destruction, and the devils who had cultivated the devil path of destruction, who had now gone completely mad, charged towards every surviving world in a myriad of worlds. They wantonly slaughtered all the living beings they saw, reveling in the wreckage of the world, celebrating the era that belonged to them, the era of destruction. Fan Wu Jie hid among the devils, his body trembling slightly. He had finally seen the era that the Azura clan had been painstakingly pursuing. Suddenly, the thought of eradicating all Azuras rose in his mind. Such a race should not live in the primitive universe. They only deserve to live in hell. Fan Wujie had never had such a clear understanding of the fact that the righteous and the devilish could not coexist. He saw all the living beings in the myriad of worlds rising up, the Taoist lords and sect masters coming out from their secluded cultivation. The ancient races and the old monsters who had been living in seclusion appeared one after another. For the sake of survival, he saw that while the Azura devils were wreaking havoc, the countless living beings still rose up and fought back, setting off the sad song of the apocalypse. Fan Wujie even felt a little resentful. He wanted to ask, what about those great experts? What about those Dara who were not even ants? What about those legendary, incomparably powerful, and incomparably proud ancient experts? What about the heaven and underworld? What about the gods and celestial venerables? Fan Wujie raised his head and looked at the darkness where Ro was dancing wildly, and there seemed to be a faint tremor coming from it. He could not see through the darkness formed by Ro, but if he could see that there were hundreds of Dara fighting against Ro in that darkness, all of them attacking together, They had beaten that darkness into a chaos where time and space no longer existed. Ro wielded the four immortal slaying swords, and Sword Light rose up to block off the river of time and space as she attacked the Dara. She was incomparably agile, and with just a raise of her hand, she killed one Dara. As the Devil Tribulation reached its climax, as the slaughter and destruction in the myriad of worlds in the universe reached a peak, the tribulation power of destruction in the celestial realm, sea, turned into a highly concentrated tribulation of destruction. It turned into the tribulation of destruction of the heavens, the tribulation of destruction of all techniques, the tribulation of destruction of vital energy, the tribulation of material void, the tribulation of decay of the universe, the tribulation of liberation of the void, the tribulation of destruction of all living beings, the tribulation of destruction of reality and illusion, the tribulation of decay of the blood sea, the tribulation of dusk of the gods. Countless tribulation of destruction raged above the celestial realm sea. The vital energy of destruction turned into all kinds of strange natural origin forces, the divine lightning of destruction, the astral wind of destruction, the heavenly fire of destruction. Finally, the myriad of worlds in the universe fell together, falling to the bottom of the celestial realm sea, forming an unimaginably terrifying whirlpool. At this time, the tribulation power of destruction formed the scene of billions of tribulations exploding at the same time. The foundation of the myriad Daos in the universe was destroyed at the same time. The myriad Daos returned to nothingness. All laws and principles were destroyed. Destruction was no longer the great Tao. It was no longer traceable. It could no longer be controlled and controlled. When a heavenly Tao collapsed, the final Tao was solved, and the myriad Daos returned to nothingness. The tribulation of destruction was finally destroyed along with the great Tao of destruction. From then on, destruction could no longer be controlled. When destruction reached its peak, it would destroy the great Tao of destruction that bound itself and formed itself. All divine abilities and techniques, all laws would be destroyed. The foundation of the existence of Taiji would be completely shaken. When the Azura demon horde discovered that they had lost the ability to control the tribulation power of destruction, they were immediately devoured by the tribulation of destruction. Brahma, Wu, Jia didn't dare to continue observing. The secret of the final Tao, the end of time, and the end of the universe, the less people knew, the better. There were indeed unimaginable mysteries of the great Tao, including the heavenly Tao and the process of the destruction of the great Tao itself, the ultimate secret that even the Tao would decay and be destroyed. But knowing this secret, didn't that mean that they didn't want to live in the Taiji era anymore? Now that Ro knew the secret of the final Tao of destruction, what would happen to her? Could he, Brahma Wu Jie, be more powerful than Ro? Brahma Wu Jie felt that countless tribulations that could turn him into ashes had brushed past his shoulders. He finally understood a despairing truth. It wasn't that he didn't face tribulations when he became Dara, but the tribulations he faced were greater than any other tribulations. He had to survive the end of time, to survive until the moment when everything ended, to live until the end of the universe. In this era of destruction, as the end of time approached, Brahma Wu Jie had become countless times stronger, as if he had been tempered countless times by the tribulation of destruction. Now, he felt that he was only one step away from becoming Dara, but this one step was like a heavenly moat. Brahma Wu Jie turned around and saw Ro. Ro held the four immortal slaying swords in her hands, and the four swords were held in her forearms, facing the void in all four directions. At this time, Brahma Wu Jie realized that Ro seemed to be struggling. That's not right. Brahma Wu Jie suddenly realized that something was wrong. Ro wasn't controlling the four immortal slaying swords, but the four immortal slaying swords were controlling Ro, and the four immortal slaying swords were controlling Demon Ancestor, who was transforming into the demon god of destruction. An unimaginably terrifying demonic shadow that carried the four immortal slaying swords was growing and transforming with Ro as nourishment. It was now Ro's shadow. But in reality, it was Ro who was transforming into his shadow. It was just a reversal, and that terrifying demonic shadow, the demon god of destruction, was born out of nowhere. River Styx and numinous treasure stood at the end of time, watching the demon god of destruction that was born and could suppress all existences. River Styx bowed slightly to numinous treasure and said, "Fellow Taoist, please make your move." Great heavenly lord numinous treasure bowed slightly, and the four immortal slaying swords lit up with sword light that swept across the entire universe, slaughtering all the hiding Dara in the universe. River Styx shook his hand, and the outer perimeter of the ultimate at the bottom of the heaven's realm sea was incomparably powerful, much more powerful than what Brahma Wu Jia had ever seen. Like a millstone, a huge whirlpool of destruction swallowed all existences and enveloped them. The sword light of the four immortal slaying swords shattered all troublesome rocks, and the huge whirlpool of the ultimate obliterated everything. The four immortal slaying swords worked together with the immortal slaying sword formation and the demon god of destruction to completely destroy the universe. Everything returned to nothingness, and Taiji returned to Wuji. The embryonic form of Wuji in the deepest part of the ultimate finally matured, and the opposing situation between Taiji and Wuji was finally overturned. Wuji contained Taiji, and the universe returned to its original state. Destruction returned to nothingness. The karma of this Pangu era is set. River Styx merged the ultimate, the immortal slaying sword formation into Wuji, and waited for the arrival of the Tai era. He then said to the group of Dara's innate, inextinguishable spirit aura, "All of you, wait patiently for the next time Pangu splits the heavens. When the time comes, we will fight for Pangu again and create another universe." The 3,000 innate, inextinguishable spirit aura nodded slightly at the few great mediums, and then escaped into the Tai era of the next universe. At the very last moment, Brahma Wu Jia finally realized that he could not reach the end of time, because everything at the end of time no longer existed. He was lucky enough to live through the era of Ro's rampage, but he could never live through the era when Ro transformed into the demon god of destruction, and even Ro herself was destroyed. Therefore, Brahma Wu Jia escaped at the last moment. With the help of Yuan-Tu's sword aura and the four immortal slaying swords, he escaped from that era. Even now, he was still afraid. Ro demon ancestor was just a puppet in the end, just a nourishment for the birth of the real demon god of destruction. The four immortal slaying swords hid an unimaginable terror, and the real demon god of destruction might be living on the four immortal slaying swords. Even the great mediums of chaos were fooled. Ro was just a pawn. Brahma Wu Jia shuddered as he recalled the moment when the demon shadow was born. The demon corpse Tao Master and the others wanted to covet the four immortal slaying swords. This was even more suicidal than I thought. They were courting death. Why was I able to escape from that era with the help of the four immortal slaying swords? The destruction of the universe that I saw, was there some conspiracy behind it? Why did I witness all of this with my own eyes? Brahma Wu Jia didn't dare to think too deeply. He looked at his innate time light Tao seed. It was no longer a seed. Instead, it was a budding sprout. Although it hadn't reached the true end of time. In the final enlightenment, when the realm sea and the endless appeared, the Tao seed still absorbed a sliver of power from the core of the endless and successfully sprouted. At this time, Brahma Wu Jia felt that the more he went upstream, the more the time light vine would grow until he reached the starting point of time. The Tao seed would completely mature. He would connect Brahma Wu Jia's existence through the timeline, witness the heaven of Dara, and begin to prove the Tao of Dara. After the tempering of the universe's destruction, Brahma Wu Jia had reached a realm that was only a thin piece of paper away from Dara. He only needed to poke through that layer of paper. As he went upstream, the realm that he obtained in the future time would slowly regress, returning to the corresponding strength at the point of time upstream. But the time-light Tao seed that had already sprouted would not regress. In other words, a part of Brahma Wu Jie's existence had already started to touch the characteristics of Dara. It was not limited by time, and the realm would never regress. This meant that Brahma Wu Jie could really go upstream in time before he was born. At this time, Brahma Wu Jie finally got a glimpse of the reverse reincarnation 9 questions. This question should be related to the changes and unchanging of reincarnation, the relationship between the unchanging of Dara and the changes of reincarnation. It was a heaven-defying divine art that could be used to cultivate a trace of the characteristics of Dara. This involved the direction of the changes of reincarnation, the boundary, the relationship between the innate, inextinguishable spirit light of Dara and reincarnation. It involved the reversal of time and cause and effect. Brahma Wu Jie still hadn't completely understood this question. He had only solved the homogeneity of this question, or rather, the weak conjecture of the river Styx's 9 questions of Hell's 9 questions. It was a question that was contained in this question. Could reincarnation be reversed? This was the problem that the reverse reincarnation involved, challenging the laws of reincarnation. Brahma Wu Jie hurriedly went back along the timeline. Before the few Dara returned, he pretended that nothing had happened. He colluded with the Shui Tu king, Ajati, and Xingyangzi, lent them the Time-Light Vine, and obtained a trace of the characteristics of Dara. Brahma Wu Jie also understood the relationship between the innate time Tao, the heaven of Dara, and the Tao proving Dara. Dara had a portion of the characteristics of Dara. If one walked along the innate time Tao, he would be able to obtain a portion of the characteristics of Dara. The characteristic of one's realm and power never regress. This characteristic was extremely important to Tao monarchs like them who were trying to prove their Tao to Dara. And because of the innate time Tao seed, Brahma Wu Jie was the easiest to cultivate this characteristic. He could also help other Tao monarchs who were at the final step to take this step. Only by obtaining this characteristic could one go to the heaven of Dara. And the heaven of Dara was the appearance of the Dara realm in the exterior realm. Only Dara could completely enter the heaven of Dara. Similarly, to completely enter the heaven of Dara, one had to wait to prove their Tao to Dara. The important thing about the heaven of Dara was not itself, but the process of approaching it. It was equivalent to pointing out a direction for all Tao monarchs, which was equivalent to exposing the secret of the Dara realm. When Tao monarchs discovered the heaven of Dara, in the process of finding a way to enter the heaven of Dara, they would gradually understand the direction of entering the heaven of Dara. Then, they would cultivate in that direction. Entering the heaven of Dara was equivalent to proving their Tao. Brahma Wu Jie understood the reason why Tao monarch Shui Tu and the others were looking for the heaven of Dara. Just like this time, they solved the problem of their existence in the timeline and took the first step to obtain the characteristics of Dara. Searching for the heaven of Dara was to them the direction and the goal of their cultivation. Chapter 12:86. In the loneliness and emptiness of the end of time, as Ro danced wildly and the great dark star covered the heavens, a figure stood in the middle of the impenetrable darkness. He walked out from the depths of time and space, slowly walking toward Ro. Rumble. Amidst the chaotic and demonic sounds of the drum of destruction, the doomsday copper pot, the flute of solitude, and the funeral swona, the person slowly walked out of the chaos. However, what protected him from the chaos was not the immortal slaying sword talisman, nor was it the replicas of the 4 immortal slaying swords. Instead, it was a small bell that looked like a bell. The sound of the bell protected the person as he passed through the chaos. This is the sound of the bell of chaos. On top of Ro's wildly dancing demonic body, his demonic consciousness slowly opened his eyes and said, "An ox knows from the mystic door's righteous path, holding the sound of the bell of chaos and coming to the end of time to see me. What an interesting combination," Ro said with a smile. "The demon ancestor is about to perish, yet you can still smile?" The person was a follower of the mystic door. He wore an imperial robe and a crown, and he did not show the slightest bit of respect to Ro. "Not bad. You've crossed the threshold of the great mediums." Ro did not mind and commented on him. "I see many traces of acquaintances on you." River Styx, 3 pure ones, Gautama Buddha, and that old fellow Tai. He even borrowed the power of your Bell of Chaos. But don't think that you can criticize me just because you have the chance to use the Bell of Chaos. Rose slightly raised the immortal, slaying sword in her hand, forcing the person to take a few steps back and place himself in the protection of the chaos. You're still far from it. After Ro finished speaking, the 4 swords moved slightly. A shocking sword energy crossed all the barriers of time and space and locked onto that person. That person was extremely nervous. The chaotic colored small bell in his hand vibrated repeatedly, making a half-illusory bell sound that suppressed the entire chaos. When that bell sound rang, that person was wrapped up and escaped from the Zhu Xian 4 swords lock. Although the small bell only had the power of 1 strike of the true Bell of Chaos, Ro only needed to use a little power to break free from the lock of the 4 immortal vanquishing swords. That person knew that even though Ro was currently in the middle of the apocalyptic berserk dance and was unable to use the true power of the 4 immortal execution swords in her full strength. However, if the true immortal vanquishing swords slashed down, it would be difficult for him to escape unless he really used the Bell of Chaos. He had to use the Bell of Chaos at a critical moment. If he used it here, his plan would be greatly affected. That person hurriedly said, Demon Ancestor and Patriarch River Styx are equally famous, but now, Patriarch River Styx is leading the demonic Tao, while Demon Ancestor can only be trapped here. Are you satisfied? What's the use of saying that? Do you think you can save me? Rose sneered. I'm not capable enough. It's difficult for me to save Demon Ancestor. That person said lightly. Ro roared. Then what the hell are you talking about? Although I'm not very capable, it doesn't mean that the person behind me is the same. That person saw that Ro had a bad temper and frankly stated his intentions. I'm here to give Demon Ancestor a great opportunity. According to what I know, when the primordial world shattered, Patriarch River Styx plotted against Demon Ancestor and lured you onto the great Tao of destruction, making you the public enemy of all the powerful beings in the 3000 era. He used this opportunity to seize the power of the demonic Tao. However, Patriarch River Styx was also afraid that Demon Ancestor had obtained the primordial world's great Tao of destruction when the primordial world shattered. Demon Ancestor's cultivation improved by leaps and bounds and was even above him. Therefore, before the primordial world was destroyed, he sealed Demon Ancestor, causing Demon Ancestor's great Tao of destruction to not be perfected through the primordial world's great Tao of destruction. He lacked a portion of power. I'm here to help Demon Ancestor complete this Tao. You're here to help me perfect the great Tao of destruction in advance. Ro said in surprise. Do you know that once my great Tao of destruction is perfected and seizes the great Tao of destruction from the primordial world's destruction, the time of perfection will be greatly brought forward. And the time when my great Tao of destruction is perfected will be the time when the universe is destroyed, the time when the Tao ends. You actually want to help me destroy this universe in advance? This is becoming enemies with all the Dara in the primordial world and many powerful beings. Do you have the guts? That person said nonchalantly, it's nothing more than the next Pangu era being brought forward. What harm will it do to Dara if the universe's destruction is brought forward? So many Pangu eras have come. Did I touch their fundamental interests by bringing forward the universe's destruction? How is this considered making enemies of the entire world? If that was really the case, wouldn't Demon Ancestor have long been dismembered and suppressed by them? Suppressing Demon Ancestor can at least extend the universe's time by 1/10, right? Rose sneered and said, they know that they have schemed against me and that they have let me down. They know that they are in the wrong, so they don't dare to go too far. The great Tao of destruction's destruction of the universe is not because of me. I am just an effect. The great Tao of destruction is an external cause. In the process of the universe's development, it constantly accumulates internal causes that lead to the destruction. Internal causes lead to external causes, causing the great Tao of destruction set by Pangu to gradually become stronger. After the external cause matured, in order to prevent the great Tao of destruction from losing control in the process of destroying the universe. The designer of the great circulation of the universe, River Styx, tricked me into filling the pit of the great Tao of destruction. He tricked me into transforming into the destruction demon god, providing insurance for the great Tao of destruction. That person praised. So the designer of the great Tao of destruction is Patriarch River Styx. Patriarch River Styx really hit it well. No wonder he could use the ruins of destruction to imprison demon ancestor. Back then I was tricked by him. When he and numinous treasure waited for me with the 4 immortal slaying swords, I was as shocked as you are. Ro's expression was uncertain. Back then, numinous treasure's incarnation tricked me into refining the 4 immortal slaying swords for him. To think that I actually believed that the embryonic forms of the 4 killing swords were the sword souls that he condensed when he slaughtered 3,000 chaos god fiends. In the end, I painstakingly refined the sword souls into 4 peerless killing swords, but he used me to settle the remaining chaos god fiends and set off the great immortal slaying tribulation. In the end, he even turned against me and snatched away the 4 immortal slaying swords that I painstakingly refined. And that bastard Duo Bao is just like his master, rotten to the core. Ro's expression was distorted as if she had recalled some unbearable past. The 4 immortal slaying sword were actually refined by great heavenly lord numinous treasure through demon ancestors' hands. The man's expression changed slightly when he heard this great secret, as if something unexpected had happened. He asked in a low voice, "Aren't the 4 immortal slaying swords still in demon ancestors' hands?" Ro's expression darkened. The 4 immortal slaying swords are too closely related to the great Tao of destruction. He used me to nurture the swords and temporarily left them with me. When he needs to use them, he can use them at any time. When he doesn't, he will leave them with me. On one hand, it will prevent the great Tao of destruction from contaminating his numinous treasure's path of destruction. On the other hand, it will avoid the great karma of the 4 immortal slaying swords. There were some things that Luo Ho did not mention. In the model of the great circulation of the untainted land, the great path of destruction was a necessary part of the great path of destruction. However, this was a dirty job. Originally, the Netherworld River and the numinous treasure were fighting for the end of untainted land. The great path of destruction was bound to fall into the hands of one of them, and that person had to bear the karma of destroying the world. In the end, neither of them wanted to dirty their hands. Thus, they refined the great Tao of destruction into the 4 immortal slaying swords and used this numinous treasure to carry out the karma on their behalf. However, the 4 immortal slaying swords could not bear this karma. Thus, before the great heavenly lord of numinous treasure split the sky, he planned to let this treasure fall into Ro's hands. Then, River Styx would act and force Ro to prove her Tao as the destruction demon god. It was equivalent to finding someone to take the blame. The two tacitly worked together to divide the power of destruction and used Ro, the Black Hand, to not dirty their own hands. It could be said that the plan was exquisite, but the price was that the 4 immortal slaying swords and Ro had a great karma. After all, there would always be someone who would wield the sword to destroy the world. What Ro did not know was that these 2 evil fellows not only split the number 1 acquired killing treasure into 2 parts, but only gave 1 part to Ro. They also sealed him so that he could not discover this. In other words, the 2 scumbags fancied a beauty but did not want to marry her. Thus, they worked together to maintain a certain beauty, the great Tao of destruction. This transaction was to control the great Tao of destruction through the 4 immortal slaying swords. However, a certain woman had to get married, so they found a certain honest man, Ro, to be the marriage partner of the great Tao of destruction. However, they did not want the beauty to be with Ro. They only wanted Ro to help them raise the woman. Thus, they locked up Ro and threw him a marriage certificate. Then, they found another place to settle the beauty. Ro hugged the marriage certificate, the 4 immortal slaying swords, while the 2 scumbags hugged the beauty, the diagram of the immortal slaying formation. The honest man did not even know what the beauty looked like. He hugged the marriage certificate and thought that he had taken over. However, in reality, he had not even touched the hands of the beauty, the true controller of the great Tao of destruction. Now, Ro thought that he was the legitimate husband of the beauty. Others also thought that he was the husband of the beauty. He had taken all the responsibilities, but all the benefits fell into the hands of River Styx and Ling Bao. However, Ro was still kept in the dark. She thought that the reason why she did not take advantage of the beauty was that she did not undo the button. However, in fact, the button was in someone else's arms. Whoever knew about this would die. A certain Poya Azura king knew something was wrong. Seeing the green hat on Ro's head, he was about to find a chance to secretly remind his boss. However, he was killed by River Styx. Ling Bao also helped to cover up the crime scene. The person who colluded with Ro did not know what was going on. Otherwise, he would not have escaped from the two adulterers. Someone did not know that he had a brush with being killed. He did not know that the 4 immortal slaying swords hid such a shocking secret. He only cared about whether Ro could use the 4 immortal slaying swords or not. Seeing that Luo Ho was finally tempted, the man finally came closer. The chaos dissipated, revealing his face. It was Reverend Ziyang, who had come along with Fan Wujie and the others. Reverend Ziyang had the air of a celestial being. His long beard was elegant, and he looked like an upright gentleman. Despite his righteous appearance, he stood in the center of the darkness of the universe, conversing with the world-destroying fiend god. Perfected Ziyang said, "If the fiend ancestor can still use the 4 immortal vanquishing swords when the primordial world shatters, he can use the opportunity of the primordial world shattering to let the 4 immortal vanquishing swords shatter the primordial world and draw the power of destruction. Can the fiend ancestor obtain that portion of the tribulation power of destruction? Could he use this opportunity to complete the great Tao of destruction in advance? That's impossible. When I swung that sword, someone in the river of time would have stopped it. Then why was the chaos destroyed?" Spiritual Master Ziyang asked. "I was already sealed at that time." Ro's tone was unfriendly. "How would I know why the chaos was destroyed? Aside from the pre-celestial treasure of destruction, what other treasures can destroy the chaos?" Spiritual Master Ziyang clasped his hands behind his back. "No one knows why the chaos was destroyed. Why couldn't it have been destroyed by the 4 immortal slaying swords?" "I already said the 4 immortal slaying swords can't." "No." Ro looked up at Spiritual Master Ziyang. "The person behind you is Tai, the Bell of Chaos." "I know. You want the Bell of Chaos and the 4 immortal slaying swords to work together to destroy the chaos. The pre-celestial treasure of destruction and the pre-celestial treasure of destruction. If they can't destroy the chaos, what else can? In the past, it was always the great practitioners who destroyed the chaos, but this time it's such a big scene." Ro was shocked. Spiritual Master Ziyang said, "With the Bell of Chaos, no one can stop you on the river of time." "No, Tai is the god of the pre-celestial beings, the innate celestial emperor who founded the imperishable divine court. The destruction of the chaos was the most detrimental to his interests. After the chaos was destroyed, the pre-celestial beings no longer existed, and all the powerful pre-celestial beings who fought with the humans lost the environment they needed to grow. He was the key to the prosperity of the human race. Why would Tai destroy the chaos?" Ro was puzzled. "Because if you don't occupy it, it will be occupied by the enemy." Spiritual Master Ziyang said, "The divine emperor of Tai changed his mind and decided to carry out the monster plan. With the strength of the human race, he will unite all living beings except for the human race. The Tai divine court will rule from the pre-celestial to the post-celestial. From then on, the post-celestial will no longer be the human race's territory. The human race is too overbearing. The human race's tyranny is also to nurture enemies for themselves, to provide a strong foundation for the divine court. Humans degrade all living beings accept them as monsters. With the human race's hegemony, the concept of monster came into being. The arrogant human race created their greatest enemy with their own hands. The human race is tyrannical, and all living beings have suffered for a long time. Now that the connection between the pre-celestial beings and post-celestial beings has been established by the human race, the pre-celestial beings will be the ancestors of post-celestial beings. They will be connected through their bloodlines and through the evolutionary rules established by Ancestor River Styx with the Avicii sword. The post-celestial beings respect the pre-celestial ancestors, and the post-celestial beings are distinguished by their bloodlines. The pre-celestial beings respect the pre-celestial gods, and the pre-celestial gods established the Tai Divine Court. This is a system of bloodline transmission, evolution, and hierarchy. From now on, the monster race respects bloodlines. Any monster who cultivates is returning to their ancestors, providing fresh blood for the pre-celestial beings. Ancestor River Styx can also take this opportunity to promote his evolutionary method. He will integrate the Avicii sword's evolutionary method into the monster race's cultivation civilization. So you think River Styx will support you? Rose sneered. Of course, I don't dare to be so bold as to think that Ancestor River Styx will support me, but at least he won't oppose me. Spiritual Master Ziyang said confidently, the opportunity to unify all the races in the universe, except for the human race, has been born. Now, in the universe, whether it's human or monster, we have succeeded. So if the Tai God has changed his attitude toward the destruction of the primordial universe. He is no longer trying to stop the destruction of the primordial universe, but he wants to see who will destroy it. Spiritual Master Ziyang said, if the untainted land is destroyed in our hands, then the entire structure of the universe in the future will be planned by us. At that time, how many worlds in the universe are suitable for the demon clan and how many worlds are suitable for the human clan will be decided by us. When the war between humans and monsters comes, and after we subdue the human race, the divine court will be reestablished, and the universe will be unified. That will be a glorious era. Spiritual Master Ziyang said excitedly. Rose said after a long time, if I'm not wrong, you seem to be a human. Do you think I'm on the side of the monster race? Spiritual Master Ziyang sneered and said, I'm not on the side of the human race, nor on the side of the bloody monster race. I'm on the side of the divine court, on the side of the innate gods. The heavenly court rules the primordial universe, regulates yin and yang like the heavenly Tao, and controls all living beings. It shouldn't be the private property of a single family or clan. The Emperor of Heaven rules the heavenly Tao with the human race, and uses the human race to override the heavenly Tao. This is already going against the law, and there will be unwarranted disasters. We are gods, and we are fair above all living beings, and rule everything equally. However, the Emperor of Heaven only cares about the human race, and he can't see the resentment of all living beings under his partiality. The Emperor of Heaven has lost his virtue. He always remembers that he is a human, and he doesn't look like an Emperor of Heaven. Emperor Ziyang's eyes were sharp, and he looked around with indifference and ruthlessness. The Emperor of Heaven rules the world on behalf of the heavenly Tao, and he should treat all living beings as dogs. The great Tao is invisible, but it gives birth to heaven and earth. The great Tao is emotionless, but it runs the sun and the moon. The great Tao is nameless, but it nourishes all living beings. How can he be a good god with a human heart? How can he be a good ruler of the primordial universe? The Tai Divine Court is the heavenly court of the innate gods, and they can be impartial and treat everything equally. The Tai Divine Court is not equal. Rose said coldly, the ancient gods are high above us, and those who are close to them get good, and those who betray them get evil. They are the most selfish gods. The Emperor of Heaven declared war on the ancient gods for the human race, for the post-celestial beings. How fearless and courageous he is. But what happened after the Emperor of Heaven ruled the world? The post-celestial beings who chose to follow the human race to resist the ancient gods. Why did they resist the human race like they did to the ancient gods? The celestial arch had just become another Tai. The human race just became another race of ancient gods. Perfected Ziyang spread his hands and asked, "At least the ancient gods ruled the primordial world with their own will. As for the Emperor of Heaven, the heavenly court, as the supreme authority that ruled the primordial world, they actually submitted to the will of the human race. They are even more ridiculous and stupid than the ancient gods. The Emperor of Heaven should only be loyal to himself. The heavenly court should only rule the primordial world for its own interests. It should not be the private property of a race or a religion." Rose said calmly, "If I heard correctly, you don't want the heavenly court to be the private property of the human race, because you hope that the Emperor of Heaven and the heavenly court are above everything else, and let the primordial world become the private property of the heavenly court." Perfected Ziyang smiled and said, "Is that wrong?" Rose said calmly, "You haven't experienced the history of the ancient gods ruling the primordial world. These are just your nonsense. Have you ever thought that the postnatal life forms outside of the human race have condensed into the demon race and colluded with the ancient gods to overthrow the rule of the human race? It's not because the rule of the human race is no different from that of the ancient gods, but because all living beings are forgetful. They have forgotten the history of the ancient gods' rule. They have forgotten the past." Perfected Ziyang said indifferently, "What's the difference?" Rose shook her head slowly and said, "So you're not really doing it for all living beings. You are just an ambitious person. You are not as good as the Emperor of Heaven. No, no, no. You are not worthy of being mentioned in the same breath as the Emperor of Heaven. You do not understand the breadth of mind of the Emperor of Heaven at all." "Ha ha ha." Ziyang laughed and said, "Ro, demon ancestor, are you advising me? Even if I am an ambitious person and cause chaos in the universe and set off endless calamities, what does this have to do with you? Isn't this what you want?" Ro also laughed and said, "Yes. What does this have to do with me? Kid, I agree to your matter. When the time is right, I will make my move. The bell of chaos will ring, and the immortal slaying sword will appear. The world will be bathed in blood, and the heavens will face a great calamity. The heavenly court will be destroyed, and the primordial world will be shattered. When the bell of chaos rings and shakes time and space, I will do as you wish and attack the heavenly court. But kid, I want to tell you, if you think that everyone will stand by and do nothing, then you have miscalculated. You think that the fall of the Emperor of Heaven and your actions of usurping the throne have nothing to do with the great divines of the related parties. They will at least look on coldly from the sidelines. But I know that there is one person who is definitely beyond your expectations. Get lost, kid." Rose's demonic thoughts closed her eyes and slowly faded away. "Although I hate the Emperor of Heaven, I hate you even more." Perfected Ziyang put on a smile that made Ro feel disgusted. He bowed slightly and turned to disappear into the chaos. Chapter 1287. Fan Wu Jie walked back from the end of time. The Candle Dragon's innate godly body had degenerated, and all the power he had obtained in the future had retreated as well. Only the part of the power that could never regress was left, and along with the two great techniques of reincarnation and reincarnation, the river of time reincarnation, they turned into chaos and disappeared from Fan Wu Jie's body. He had returned to his original state. Feeling the emptiness in his body after the power retreated, the endless mysteries of the great Tao and the understanding also retreated from his consciousness. Fan Wu Jie felt an emptiness that he had never felt before. After his originally solid foundation of Tao had retreated, even the characteristic of Dara and the vine of time in his body had become illusory and wavered. Obtaining the power of the future is not without its hidden dangers. Comprehending and cultivating on the foundation of Tao in the future is equivalent to overdrafting my future potential. Not only will my foundation be shaken after the power of the future fades away, it is also not good for my future cultivation. After experiencing the power of the future, although it has pointed out the direction of my cultivation, it has also hindered my knowledge. If I want to walk a different path from the future, it will be even more difficult. Fan Wu Jie sighed softly and said, "The future is poisonous. The great techniques of reincarnation and the river of time reincarnation are indeed powerful. But if I did not experience the future, I might be able to improve on the foundation of the 9 questions of the netherworld and the seed of time Tao, and comprehend even more powerful techniques. But now, it is very difficult for me to do so." Fan Wu Jie sensed that all his knowledge and memories regarding these 2 great divine abilities had completely faded away. But he also had a faint feeling that when he tried to comprehend these 2 great divine abilities in the future, it would definitely help him a step further, and success would come naturally when the conditions were right. But at the same time, this feeling was also a kind of restriction. If he wanted to comprehend other different techniques from the 9 questions of the netherworld and the seed of time Tao, there would be an indescribable barrier. It was like after looking at the reference answer, it was very difficult to break through the reference answer and think of a new solution. In other words, it was a hindrance in knowledge. "You are back." The Shui-Tu King stared at them with a pair of bloodshot eyes, causing Fan Wu Jie's heart to tremble. Now, Fan Wu Jie could finally see some clues from their bodies. The 3 people worth paying attention to in the Devil Path, Shui-Tu King, Ajadi, and the Righteous Path Spy, Xingyangzi, were all far stronger than him. Perhaps only when Fan Wu Jie reached the end of time and stood at the pinnacle of the future could he compare. In other words, if Fan Wu Jie did not seize this opportunity to prove his Tao, even if he cultivated to the end of the universe, the end of time cultivated the innate divine body of the Candle Dragon, and cultivated the great divine power of reincarnation, he would only be able to be mentioned in the same breath as them. Fan Wu Jie had the time light seed of Tao. The Shui-Tu King also had the secret trump card of the Blood Sea, and Ajadi also had the Yuan-Tu sword aura. Zhengyangzi still could not see through them. You have already obtained a bit of Dara's characteristics. You have a little bit of the unchanging and unchanging time light. Ajadi also looked at Fan Wu Jie and said, "Your time light seed of Tao has already sprouted. It is enough for you to understand the characteristics of Dara." Fan Wu Jie said in a low voice, "You better hurry up. Spiritual Master Ziyang and the others will soon see the seal and come over to us." Spiritual Master Ziyang and the others. These Dara's plan is very scary. The Shui-Tu King followed beside Fan Wu Jie, turned himself into a fruit on the time-light vine, and quickly ripened and fell. After this, his Tao fruit quickly obtained the characteristics of Dara, and he obtained a bit of the unchanging state. Ajadi also went through this, and obtained the characteristics of Dara, and at the same time, he agreed, "Our ambition is already very scary. We are already very daring. Those who dare to come here all want to do something big, but no matter how big the thing we do, it is not as big as Dara. Compared to Dara, our little plan is not even worth their attention. There must be someone in Dara who is colluding with Ro." Yuan Yu slowly walked out of the chaos. "But I do not know who it is. It could be my senior brother, or it could be the Tao Master of Demon Corpse Tao. The Tao Master of Demon Corpse Tao is going crazy. Of course, it could also be Shemali. He might not have betrayed Ro at all." Yuan Yu pretended to walk around, and he recovered a bit of Dara's characteristics. "Senior brother?" The Shui-Tu King's eyes focused. "Old turtle. 3 poisons. Who is your senior brother?" Yuan Yu bowed slightly. "My 2 friends. I am Xingyangzi, a spy from the righteous I Chi sect." The aura on the Shui-Tu King's body suddenly froze, and his face turned ugly. "No wonder the righteous knew our whereabouts so well. No wonder you could turn the tables on the Tao Master of Demon Corpse Tao. Zhengyangzi. Good, very good." The Shui-Tu King's face was full of murderous intent, and he stared at Yuan Yu. Not only did Ajadi not have any murderous intent, but he also pressed on the Shui-Tu King's shoulder and smiled gently. This did not mean that the sect master of the demonic Tao of Massacre was calm and cheerful. On the contrary, the calm Ajadi was scarier than the ruthless Shui-Tu King. "Old friend, you hit it well. There is no need to hide it now." Yuan Yu sighed. "I am not your enemy. In fact, I did not want to be a spy in the demonic Tao, but to avoid a person that I am very afraid of, I'm not afraid of being laughed at, but being beside my senior brother is more oppressive and scary than being a spy in the demonic Tao. At that time, he was the leader of the I Chih sect, a famous leader of the righteous Tao. But only I could see through his scholarly appearance the inhuman nature, so I ran away in fear. I used the excuse of being a spy in the demonic Tao to enter the beauty lady sect. Maybe you don't believe me. Although I was a spy in the righteous Tao, I did not harm the beauty lady sect at all. Yuan Yu sighed. The beauty lady sect is a group of pitiful women. Is this the reason you are a pervert? Fan Wujie was speechless. Because you have been suppressed for a long time next to a senior brother in human skin, but inhuman on the inside. So once you are free, you indulge yourself? Be careful, Yuan Yu reminded. That senior brother of mine is not simple. I suspect that spiritual master Ziyang is not his real backer, and the I Chih sect's foundation is too strange towards him. Whether it is the innate spiritual treasure or the foundation of the sect. Before Ziyang, they're too lowly as Ziyang's dogs. Yuan Yu added inwardly. Moreover, the I Chih sect was able to attract the interest of Patriarch River Styx, causing River Styx Patriarch to order me to infiltrate and hide. The Tao Master Corpse Demon is about to become a pervert. The Shui Tu King exclaimed. He has crossed the taboo. When it comes to the Netherworld 9 questions, it is normal for him to become a pervert. Ajadi said, his role in the battle that overturned the underworld is definitely not that simple. Munkavidya might have found out something from Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. One of his missions in the bottomless ruins is definitely to keep an eye on the Tao Master Corpse Demon. Someone who could attract Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's attention might be a key to the underworld's reincarnation great secret. That Dragon Dara wants to find the ancestral dragon. The Shui Tu King said, it seems credible at the moment. At the crucial moment, I can use clues about the ancestral dragon to exchange for his help. The Blood Sea has clues about the ancestral dragon? Yuan Yu exclaimed. Could the disappearance of the Daozu dragon really be related to Patriarch River Styx? The ancestral dragon did not disappear. He left the chaotic 4 seas of his own accord. I know that he went to the Blood Sea in the end. No one forced him. The ancestral dragon entered the Blood Sea of his own accord. He met Patriarch River Styx and left the Blood Sea. The old monk of Vidya is also very strange. He is more interested in the Daoists than the bottomless ruins. Yuan Yu added, but I don't know who he's here for. From the clues on the surface, it seems to be the Tao Lord Corpse Lord, but a Grand Luo's calculations would never be so shallow. He might be interested in everyone. The Tao Master Corpse Demon has the secrets of reincarnation and the underworld. The Dragon Dara might be related to a Xianming ancestral shaman. The disappearance of ancestral shaman Gonggong, Patriarch Kuan Peng, and the ancestral dragon might be related to Patriarch River Styx. The Purple Sun spiritual master might be the even more ancient Dara. If the One Chi sect is his dog, the One Chi sect originated from the ancient Heavenly Court. They are one of the top sects established by the remnants of the Heavenly Court. If the Purple Sun spiritual master is their master, wouldn't he be an important figure in the Heavenly Court? If the Purple Sun spiritual master is their master, wouldn't he be an important figure in the Heavenly Court? Shemali betrayed Ro and joined Patriarch River Styx for a big reason. We don't know who the old monk of Vidya is monitoring. It could be all the Daoists, or even everyone. The Shui Tu King uncovered a corner of the mystery surrounding the 5 Daoists. It involves Lady Hutu, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, Niwa Empress, Xianming Ancestral Shaman, Patriarch Gonggong, Patriarch Kuan Peng, Patriarch River Styx, the Ancient Emperor Heaven, the Primordial Demon Emperor, and the Demon Ancestor of Ro. It involves the destruction of the Heavenly Court, the collapse of the underworld, the disappearance of the Patriarch of Witchcraft, the shattering of the chaos, the great war of witchcraft and demons, the sealing of Ro, and the end of the universe. I don't think we are decrypting the secrets. We are playing with fire, courting death. Ajadi commented calmly. Turning back will only lead to a worse death. Yuan Yu said expressionlessly. Moreover, without these chess players playing chess, how can we have a chance to break out of the game against the Dara Taoists? Currently, the mastermind suspected to have made a move is Ro Demon Ancestor. Among the 5 Dara Taoists, there is definitely someone who is in cahoots with the Demon Ancestor of Destruction. This is his chance. At the end of time, Ro looked at a figure slowly walking out of the chaos. She rolled her eyes and said, "Another one. Why is it so lively here today? I can't believe I can see so many old friends, and you dare to come see me." Patriarch River Styx. He suppressed Piaget, opened the blood sea of Calamity Eye, suppressed the Azura demon horde, and the remnants of Ro. The traces of his moves are too obvious. Yuan Yu silently rolled his eyes inwardly. Patriarch River Styx's chess pieces are here. You know nothing about his chess skills. Do you think River Styx is only involved in a few things? For example, the disappearance of the ancestral dragon, the changes in reincarnation, the calamity of the underworld, and the sealing of Ro? But Patriarch River Styx, he is involved in everything. He is involved in all the conspiracies that you can think of. It seems like spiritual master Ziyang is not involved in River Styx among the 5 Dara Taoists, but the one who sent me to the One Chi sect as a spy was Patriarch River Styx. Lady Hood. She is the one who orchestrated the annihilation of the underworld. As one of the leaders of the ancestral witches, she must have done something to the corpse demon Taoist master. At the very least, the one who drove him crazy is ancestral witches Hood too. Kid, are you tired of living by saying that? Someone thought so, and then acted to block out the blood-soaked demon lord's existence. There's also Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. I keep getting the feeling that the ruins we've encountered along the way are hinting at something. The Shwetu King said solemnly, the Hall of Enlightenment of the Primordial Demon Court, the Garden of Solitude where the revered one of the world spoke of the blood sea that formed the Eye of Calamity when it invaded the ultimate, Patriarch River Styx's experimental ground, the realm of freedom, the 9 questions of the netherworld, the remnants of Ro, the Khanate time seed, and the fruit of the immortal herb that mysteriously flew out of the forbidden land of the divine mountain. If this has something to do with the great mediums who placed the seeds, the primordial demon emperor, the ancient emperor of heaven, the 12 ancestral witches, the revered one of the world, and the 2 demon ancestor, all of them are involved. The Shwetu King suddenly said to the other 3, "Let's go forward first and sort out the clues along the way. Aren't you afraid of flying to your death because you know too much?" Yuan Yu glanced at him indifferently. The Shwetu King smiled and said, "I'm not afraid. I have someone above me." Fan Wu Jie looked at him deeply, his eyes filled with deep envy. It was good to have someone above you. Let's start with the Khanate time seed. This should be the starting point of all the arrangements. The Khanate time seed appeared out of nowhere, and this is the only key to the heaven of Dara. That is why it attracted the attention of the 3 religions. The 3 poisons, as a spy of the righteous path, when the golden chaos fragment appeared 10,000 years ago, you formed a karmic connection with fellow Taoist Fan and seized the initiative. The 3 poisons used the dragons of the 4 seas to hunt you down. This is the beginning of the dragons' involvement. The dragons of the 4 seas are not simple characters. The dragons of Dara had their eyes on you at this time. On the surface, they used the excuse of forcing you to enter the ultimate to search for treasures. But in reality, the 3 religions of the Buddhist sect, the Dark Demon sect, and the dragons work together to trick fellow Taoist Fan into going to the heaven of Dara. Here, the dragons and the 3 poisons work together to force fellow Taoist Fan into the depths of the ultimate. Currently, everyone's plan is to go to the heaven of Dara. Ajati joined the plan because of his and Shimali's conspiracy. The Buddhist sect's Fajing joined the plan as a representative. The spiritual master Zi Yang joined the plan because of the 3 poisons. The dragons of Dara followed behind fellow Taoist Fan. Then, the 3 poisons brought fellow Taoist Fan to Luo, Iluwa City. Here comes the problem, the Shwetu King said as he walked. The 3 poisons are spies of the righteous path, and they have nothing to do with Shemali. Why would they bring fellow Taoist Fan into the trap? The one who informed Shimley was you? Secmaster. The lifeless hierarch smiled slightly. He was rather proud and did not feel awkward at all. After all, this was an old tradition of the demonic path. Then why did the three poisons work together? The Shwetu king looked at Ajadi and Yuanyu and said, "But the real way to enter the heaven of Dara is because the remnants of Ro are hiding in the blood sea of Tribulation I. Who was the one who suppressed the remnants of Ro?" Yuanyu asked back. The blood-soaked demon lord took a deep breath and did not pursue the matter any further. "I understand." Yuanyu explained himself. "Why did I bring fellow Taoist Fan to Shemley? It was because the destructive storm of the ultimate brought us to the primordial corroding blood sea. I can't control the landing point of the destructive storm." The Shwetu king fell silent. Now, everyone knew which great divinity had interfered and placed this chess piece. The Shwetu king laughed awkwardly and said, "The elder ancestor is a great strategist. We will definitely go through fire and water for his great plan." He stared at Yuanyu and Fan Wu Jie fiercely and said, "We are all elder ancestors people, right?" Fan Wu Jie glanced at the 8-armed demon god tattoo on his body. It was the mark formed by the blood oath of the demonic path. Yuanyu silently revealed the tattoo of a dancing heavenly enchantress on his neck. Instantly, everyone came to an agreement. Yuanyu laughed and said, "The demon ancestor is a great strategist." Ajadi said with a fanatical expression, "We are all united for the great cause of the demon ancestor." Fan Wu Jie had no choice but to agree with him. The demon ancestor is wise and powerful. It is good. It is good. After Ancestor River Styx made his move and sent Fan Wu Jie and the others to Shimley, the Shwetu king continued to analyze. In the eyes of the Blood Sea Calamity, fellow Taoist Fan first met the Taoist Lord of Corpse Demon Tao and hid in the Aeon's Calamity to obtain the key to enter Ro's seal from the remnants of Ro. Then, the innate seed of time was sent in, and Piyaji's plan began. Piyaji planned to save the demon ancestor of Ro, but later, we found out that it was impossible. Therefore, this was not Piyaji's real plan. Piyaji was hidden by Adara, and no secrets could be kept from her. Therefore, she was abandoned. Then, who was the one who was working with Piyaji? Was it the Taoist Lord of Corpse Demon, Tao, who hid beside Piyaji? Or was it Shemley who betrayed Piyaji and killed the remnants of Ro? The Shwetu king said calmly, "The one who is working with the demon ancestor of Ro is the Dara." Ro looked at the figure in front of her with a complicated expression. Shemley stood in front of Ro, showing no fear. "You still dare to come and see me?" Ro said coldly. "Why not?" Shemley said, "I used to be your subordinate, your most loyal follower, but you betrayed us to Ancestor River Styx. You betrayed us first and gave the position of River Styx to him. You were the one who betrayed us first. You abandoned Azura. Am I not obeying your opinion?" Ro sighed and said, "I am sorry, but this isn't a reason for you to betray Vemeshido and the others. Shimori, did you send your subordinates to their deaths just to show your loyalty to the Nether River and find a way out for the Azura you speak of?" Ro revealed a shocking piece of information. Shemley was not Piyaji's subordinate. On the contrary, he was Piyaji's leader, an Azura king who was as famous as Vemeshido and one of Ro's right-hand men. "I used to be the most loyal and worshipped you, Queen Ro," Shemley said, "but when you gave up on Azura and gave us to River Styx, I was also the most disappointed. So, I gave up on the great Tao you passed down, gave up on my previous fruit of Tao, and gave it to Piyaji. I am no longer the most valiant vanguard under Queen Ro of Azura tribe. So, when you needed us again, I returned to you as an insignificant pawn. I hoped that you could rise again and become the king of Azura. We were betrayed by our father, you. Now, we hope that you can become our king again, but you betrayed us again as a king." Shemley said coldly, "You coveted the great pie that Ancestor River Styx painted for you. You touched the great Tao of destruction, and you became stronger. But we, Azura, lost our foundation, the great Tao of the Blood Sea. We were completely abandoned by River Styx. At that time, I returned to the Blood Sea and apologized to Ancestor River Styx. A complicated expression appeared on Ro's face. It was a mixture of shame and anger. Or it could be called shame and anger. Ancestor River Styx was really amazing. I finally realized that River Styx didn't care about Azura at all. He could create a race to replace Azura at any time. He could create a new Azura tribe at any time. When we left the foundation of the Blood Sea, our foundation would be replaced by the new race created by River Styx. Azura would cease to exist. At that time, I only thought that if I surrendered to Ancestor River Styx, I might be able to preserve Azura's foundation. You led the other tribesmen to build a new foundation for us. But you failed. You fell into River Styx's trap. At that time, I had no other choice. Everything was for our tribe. Shemali said calmly. Rahu stared at the dead body of Piyaji that Shemali had brought over. The old master of Demon Shaman grinned, then transformed into a thick, undispellable shadow, darted out of Piyaji's dead body, walked to Shemali's back, and said with a smile, King Shemali, my mission is done. Ancestor thinks highly of you this time. Hee. Shemali's face was expressionless. Ro sighed. Well said, but it is still a betrayal. Shemali, go. I will give you what you want this time. But the next time you appear in front of me, there will only be one outcome. Ro grabbed Piyaji and slipped into the darkness. Holding Piyaji's corpse, Ro didn't revive it immediately. He stood in the center of the darkness, facing another direction. His other head looked up at the chaos. Demon Corpse, Tao Master, walked out from that direction. Ro sneered. You had to deal with Piyaji. But where is Piyaji now? Demon Corpse Tao Master said. She was kidnapped. But she should be in your hands now. So, you still dare to make a deal with me? Now is not the time to make a deal. Demon Corpse Tao Master said. I have lost the right to make a deal. So, I am here to make a deal with you. Shuetu and the others might not have imagined that there was more than one person who colluded with Ro. There were three, and Ro's real plan didn't rest on these three traitors, but on another person who knew a lot, knew what she couldn't say, and was completely loyal to Ro, Dara. Shemali returned to the chaos. Piyaji was very powerful, as expected of his most favored subordinate, and the successor of his position. In the face of Ancestor River Styx, she was able to make a deal with River Styx in a hopeless situation. So, Piyaji could only be revived through him or Demon Corpse Tao Master. His resurrection process had to be controlled by Ancestor River Styx. But Piyaji's method of making a deal with the enemy's highest leader behind her own king's back was actually a betrayal. Although Piyaji's betrayal was for Ro's sake, Ro couldn't accept it. For her own king's benefit, she had to betray her own king. Piyaji, what are you thinking? Shemali sighed. Piyaji, what secrets did you learn in the ultimate? Why did you cooperate with Demon Corpse Tao Master? Why did you find me in the end? Why did you submit to River Styx? Shemali recalled that when Piyaji was drowned in the sea of blood, he connected the clues in his hands and discovered a shocking secret. He overturned all his original plans, submitted to River Styx, and obtained the possibility of resurrection. In the end, he reached an agreement with Demon Corpse Tao Master, who was hiding among his subordinates. He even left behind his last words, entrusted his corpse to Shemali, and made a fake plan to create a pure land in the sea of blood. Now, he followed his last words and gave his corpse to Ro, and, as expected, he got what Piyaji promised when she was alive. The things that Piyaji and Mo knew were all clues left behind by Piyaji. Why did Demon Corpse Tao Master succeed? Why was his plan actually a way to enter the deepest part of the ultimate, to enter the end of time and the sky of Dara? Because Piyaji's real plan, the real key, was the corpse he left behind. When Piyaji's corpse was brought to Rahu, Rahu would be able to resurrect her. That was the true start of his plan. However, the true executors of his plan were two mortal enemies on the surface. The Tao Master of Corpse Demon, who had been hiding among the remnants of Azura for eons, and the traitor of Azura, King Shimori. This plan was even approved by River Styx, who had sealed Ro. This was the real plan that could deceive Dara, the real plan that could divert Dara's attention from the remnants of Ro. Piyaji and the other remnants of Ro were the pawns used to divert attention. The real key had always been Piyaji's corpse. Who would have thought that after the remnants of Ro had been completely defeated, captured, or killed, and the remnants of Ro had vanished into thin air, the most important key had been personally delivered to Ro by Piyaji's enemy. River Styx's participation had deceived too many people. This was because this plan needed the help of the Styx to conceal it. Only then would there be a chance of success. But who would have thought that River Styx, who had sealed Ro and was supposed to be the scariest enemy of Ro's remnants, would actually help the remnants of Ro to deceive everyone? Piyaji's answer was simple: to be River Styx's pawn. Don't be afraid of being used. You should be afraid of not even being used. The old monk, Wu Ming, stood before the sword light that had sealed off the river of time and sighed. Demons are dancing wildly. None of them are easy to deal with. Dara of the Dragon Clan was speechless in the middle of the indescribably dark star, where there was no light. Piyaji suddenly opened his eyes. He knelt down on one knee in front of Ro. My king. Chapter 1288. Fan Wujie walked forward in the chaos, going against the flow of time. With every step he took, his condition regressed greatly. His realm and cultivation base fell rapidly, and soon he fell below the realm of Tao Monarch. Only the Dara characteristic of the Time Light Vine that never regressed did not degrade. Instead, the Time Light Vine in his consciousness started to absorb the power of the Time Light he walked past. Fan Wujie took the time to look at the few people who were traveling with him. He saw that Yuan Yu's face was not red, and he was not panting. Instead, his body seemed to be stronger than before. The bloody-soaked demon monarch and the lifeless cult leader were also very calm. He could not help but feel a little shocked. These old monsters have cultivated for a really long time. I have already fallen from the realm of Tao Monarch, and they still do not seem to have their cultivation base shaken. If not for the fact that my Time Light Tao seed had sprouted and a part of its power never regressed, I would have come to them on a silver platter. Just like that, another tens of thousands of years passed. Fan Wujie's cultivation base had regressed to below the level of an immortal, and his corporeal body had visibly become younger. At this time, Fan Wujie's face was still young and inexperienced. Even his Tao heart, which had been calm and steady, and had gone through hundreds of trials and tribulations, had become lively. It was as if he had become young and impulsive as time turned back. At this time, the three people beside him still looked the same. Fan Wujie thought to himself, these old monsters really have a deep foundation. In front of us is the time of my birth. Fan Wujie said, if we go any further, I will no longer exist. Yuan Yu counted with his fingers and said, we are only at this point. The Shuetu King's mouth also twitched. Fellow Taoist Fan, you are truly a genius, and you are in your prime. You have made me feel ashamed of living for so many years. Ajadi joked, why don't we stop for a moment when fellow Taoist Fan was young, and let fellow Taoist Fan reminisce about his childhood? Fan Wujie thought about how his fleshly body had returned to its youth, and how it had looked so cute and adorable. In front of such an old monster, an undying old man, his little face filled with baby fat, and his innocent and childish look. Fan Wujie felt a chill run down his spine, and he hurriedly took a few steps forward to cross the time period. As soon as he crossed the time period in which he was born, Fan Wujie's entire existence collapsed. His fleshly body, mystic power, nascent divinity, everything that made up him all turned illusory, turning into chaotic energy that slowly faded from his body. Strands of chaotic energy were stripped from his existence and thrown into the chaotic ocean behind him. After all of Fan Wujie's existence faded, what was revealed was actually a vine that was connected to the end of time and entwined with cosmic light true water. When Yuan Yu and the other two saw Fan Wujie reveal his true nature, their faces changed. Fan Wujie could sense his non-existent self as if everything that had happened in the cycle of reincarnation had become a mark that was branded onto his substructure. Somehow, he understood that after his nascent divinity, his fleshly body, and all of his existence had vanished, all of his memories and past had transformed into a true spirit mark that represented his true self. This imprint of true spirit helped him stabilize himself. When the river of time flowed forward, he could still maintain his future memories and self. So this is me, and this mark is the true spirit? Fan Wu Jie curiously observed the mark that had condensed his existence. This is the true spirit. Yuan Yu sighed. It was formed by the mark of reincarnation on your body, and it records everything about you. Even if you don't have your past, it can still maintain your self-existence. This is protection and also imprisonment. Shuetu King said coolly. To become Dara, one has to break free from the shackles of the true spirit. Other than oneself, no one can define the self. This is Dara. Hide the true spirit mark, Shuetu King said. The true spirit mark is very important to those who are below Dara. Compared to the so-called blood essence, horoscope, and 8 characters, it is much closer to your substructure. If someone were to pry into it, it would be very harmful. When Fan Wu Jie heard this, he immediately choked. He hurriedly retracted his true spirit, wrapping it in layers of cosmic true water and hiding it in the depths of time and space. So, this thing was really that important? So you guys are trying to pry into my substructure and warn me. Even if you want to take advantage of me, you still have to act like a good person. Fan Wu Jie's post-celestial existence was removed, and he only retained the characteristics that were close to Dara's, so he paid close attention to the 3 old monsters beside him. After walking for a few more periods, the 3 old monsters, Yuan Yu, Shuetu, and Wu Sheng, still showed no obvious changes. Fan Wu Jie was secretly shocked. These 3 were probably true peak Dao Lords, people who were only a step away from the realm of Dara, the top old monsters in the universe. At this time, Fan Wu Jie had already begun to encounter some Dao Lords who were lost in the sea of chaos. There were Dao Lords and golden immortals from the righteous and evil sides, as well as mighty bodhisattvas from the Buddhist League. All of them were stuck in their prime and did not move forward. If they moved forward, they would enter an even weaker era, and if they moved backward, they might lose themselves. If they stayed where they were, as time passed, because of the reversal of time and space in the sea of chaos, they would gradually move away from the primitive universe. Of course, the process of leaving the original universe was very long. Leaving the original universe and approaching other universes would require at least an immeasurable amount of time. This place is indeed not a good place. Fan Wu Jie sighed. Without an endless lifespan, and without attaining the characteristics of Dara, one will only be trapped in his own timeline, unable to advance or retreat. That's not true, Shuetu King said disdainfully. Those who are truly wise and have great perseverance will naturally be able to grasp their opportunities. Delaying here and being stuck between a rock and a hard place, they are just mediocre people with weak minds. Yuan Yu also smiled. Although there is a cosmic trap here, as long as one has enough perseverance, they will naturally be able to live another life. Live another life? Fan Wu Jie seemed to have been touched by something. He had the faint inspiration of comprehending the cycle of reincarnation in the future, and very soon, he was touched by something, but he still couldn't comprehend it in a short time. Ajadi explained, "Don't look at how there's nothing in the Chaos Sea. In fact, the chaos aura beneath our feet contains universes after universes. The chaos aura contains everything. You think that they're trapped in a trap where nothing appears, but in fact, they're only trapped by their own knowledge. The universe can't be seen, and the great Tao is unknown. That's why they're standing on the Chaos Sea. If they fall into the Chaos Sea, they will discover that the universe has always been beside them. They can't detect it." Fan Wu Jie asked in astonishment, "But this primal chaos is the great god Zhulong's seal. How can they break it? This chaos trap, Other than using the number one killing power in the heavens to break it, there is another way. The Shui-Tu King asked Fan Wu-Jie, fellow Taoist fan, have you not comprehended it yet? Fan Wu-Jie's mind flashed, and he seemed to remember something. He thought about it carefully and remembered that this was the moment when he crossed the point of his birth, the moment when he went from existence to non-existence. The entire primal chaos seemed to have changed, but he was in a hurry to cross this point, so he didn't notice it. At this time, Fan Wu-Jie came to a realization. They still have a chance to cross the point of their birth, the moment when they go from existence to non-existence. Because they don't exist, Zhulong's seal is meaningless. The primal chaos will be broken at that moment, and they will be able to let their true spirit imprint fall into the chaos sea, and in the past universe, they will be able to reincarnate into themselves. But after their true spirits go through this reincarnation, all their memories of the future will turn into primal chaos, which is equivalent to falling into the mystery of the womb. Every Tao lord on the path of cultivation. Although there is an innate talent and comprehension, acquired temperament and opportunities are more important. No one can be sure that after they reincarnate, their path will be smooth sailing, and they will cultivate to become a Tao lord. This is a life and death trial, which is equivalent to cultivating a new life. No wonder fellow Taoists said that it is another life. Fan Wu-Jie sighed. The Shui-Tu King smiled and said, if that is all, then wouldn't it be a waste of the great opportunity of the Chaos Sea? These people care too much about the results of their cultivation, but they don't know that Zhulong's seal is not aimed at them, but at all things that are tainted after the heavens, all existences that disrupt the order of time and space. What trapped them in the primal chaos is the cultivation and memories that they cherish as much as their lives. As long as these memories are washed away, they will return to their original purity, and the primal chaos will disappear. So the most important thing to cultivate in the Chaos Sea is to be willing to give up. Give up the acquired things and protect the innate weakness. Protecting the innate weakness is like returning to a seed, which can naturally take root and germinate in the primal chaos. If we take all the Tao of Zhulong's innate purity, we will just be reincarnating and walking again. It is not in line with the original intention of us post-celestial life forms. However, if we are not willing to give up our cultivation and memories, we will inevitably be incompatible with the primal chaos and be trapped in the primal chaos trap. The true cultivation method to live another life is between the two, and it requires the cultivator to grasp the delicate balance between the two. On one hand, we have to give up the taint, and on the other hand, we have to maintain ourselves. In the end, we stand above the chaos sea, but the shadow enters the past universe. The God is on the sea, and the person is in the sea. We control our own fate and live another life. Fan Wu-Jie was silent when he heard this. After a long time, he sighed and said, how difficult is this? How can it be cultivation if it is not difficult? The Shui-Tu King smiled and did not think much of it. At this time, they had walked far away. Only then did Fan Wu-Jie notice the changes in the three people beside him. The Shui-Tu King had become younger. His thick eyebrows were sharp, and his aura was awe-inspiring. Every move he made was domineering, and he was like a big shot of the devil path. Ajadi had a murderous aura, but he had the appearance of a cold young man. Yuan Yu's greasy aura was gone, and between his brows, there was an extremely righteous aura. He was a handsome young man. Fan Wu-Jie calculated carefully. They had already walked on the long river of time, and they were close to the time of the immeasurable calamity. As expected of three old monsters, it's almost time for the primordial world to shatter. Fan Wu-Jie came to a realization and said, you guys can't have proven your Tao before the primordial world shatters, right? The Shui-Tu King and Ajadi smiled and said, at this point in time, we are already close to our origin. The primordial world shatters still have to go a little further. Indeed, after a few steps, Yuan Yu was the first to withdraw his intrinsic nature and revealed a ball of yang qi that was Dara's characteristic. The Shui-Tu King's face turned cold, and he said coldly, as expected of the righteous I Chi sect. Not long after, Ajati also withdrew his true self and revealed a gray, almost transparent, but constantly changing sword chi. This was his Dara characteristic. The Shui Tu King finally withdrew his true self, and the Dara characteristic that was revealed was a river of blood, and it was extraordinary. However, he was the one with the strongest intrinsic Dara characteristic among them. Although Fan Wu Jie could not see their true spirit imprints, he was confident that he could see through some of them, and he immediately calmed down. In the dark, Yuan Yu and the others exchanged glances, and they said, "How much did you expose just now?" "I couldn't hide it. I exposed about 60 to 70%. Who are you trying to fool? At most, 30%, no more. What about you?" "I have a backup plan, and only 20% of what I showed him was real." "And you, Shui Tu King, you hit it well, didn't you? That river of blood is at most a piece of your skin. Showing him a piece of skin is already good enough." Fan Wujie did not know what they were secretly talking about, and he looked around cautiously and even stopped in his tracks and said in a low voice, "According to the information revealed by the Bodhi tree's growth rings, it should be the time when the primordial world shatters. We do not know what we will see in this era. If something unusual happens, it will be very scary." Just as Fan Wujie and the others were hesitating, a bell suddenly rang out in front of them. Fan Wujie and the others' faces changed. Not good. The bell of chaos is really ringing. Fan Wujie's face twisted in fear, and he screamed at his heart, "I was just guessing. Don't make me guess so accurately." As the bell rang, the sea of chaos in front of them tumbled endlessly, and the chaotic chi boiled. A huge bell, the color of chaos, blocked the sea of chaos in front of them and set off a shocking storm. As the sound waves swept across the sea of chaos, the sound lingered. When the bell rang, Fan Wujie, Yuan Yu, and the others could not help but be frozen in the sound of the bell. The sound of the bell distorted time and space, and the chaotic chi seemed to be frozen, neither dissipating nor moving. It was extremely strange. Fan Wujie and the others could not move, and they could not even think and could only see the scene in front of them. It was an infinitely vast heavenly palace, extremely majestic, and countless celestial generals and celestial soldiers were stationed in the heavenly palace, and countless weapons of war were activated. This was not just a heavenly palace. This was a fortress of war, a conquering universe, and a divine court. On it, Fan Wujie saw a palace that was very familiar to him, the Hall of Enlightenment. At this moment, the Hall of Enlightenment was more than 10,000 times more majestic than the ruins they saw. Layers of time and space, countless golden immortals, and innumerable connate gods were stationed inside. Countless golden figures stood in the heavenly palace, and each of their auras was no weaker than a few of them. As the sound of the bell spread, the chaos was broken by the sound waves of the bell, and the chaotic chi collapsed into a universe, and the sky entered it. Just as a gap was opened, they saw the universe on the other side, and there were also countless celestial soldiers and generals waiting in battle formation, and their auras were monstrous. The heavenly palace entered that universe, and after a while, a murderous aura shot up into the sky, and the endless murderous aura dyed the sea of chaos black. Fan Wujie and the others could not help but fall into that battlefield. They were so scared that their souls left their bodies. In that terrible battlefield, they could not even be considered as small soldiers. If they were to get involved, would they still be alive? Fan Wujie roared, "Fellow Taoists, lend me a hand." He urged the timeless vine with all his might, and when the bell was about to pull them into it, he moved a distance on the river of time, but in the end he was still pulled into the sea of chaos, into the universe of the past. As the bell slowly dissipated, it could be countless years, or maybe it was just a moment, but in the chaos of the bell, time had no meaning. Fan Wujie felt the light in front of him gradually moving, and he could vaguely see many figures flashing in front of him. Laughter came into his ears, and Fan Wu Jie was relieved. Since there was such laughter, it meant that they were not involved in the bloody battle between the immemorial demon court and the ancient celestial court. As long as it was not the worst outcome, everything was fine. The laughter said, "Sister, look, that is the fleet of Imperial Prince Ziyang patrolling the sky. I wonder which Imperial Prince Ziyang is, to have such a grand procession." The ancient universe is ruled by the celestial court, and all races are respected. How awe-inspiring. It is said that the Emperor Heaven has not shown his divinity for several eons already. It is said that he wants to abdicate. Imperial Prince Ziyang is very powerful. Now, it is Emperor Zhuanshu who is ruling the world. Even if the Emperor Heaven wants to abdicate, it should be Emperor Zhuanshu who ascends the throne. Sister, where did you hear this nonsense from? The light in front of him gradually became clearer, and the blurry scene became vivid. Fan Wu Jie saw a decorated pleasure boat sailing across the sky above a huge abyss. On both sides of the boat were immortal peaks that pierced through the clouds, and there were pavilions on the peaks. Between the pavilions, there were either people riding on clouds or black winds. Countless immortals were rising and falling on the immortal peaks on both sides of the boat, and there were no less than 100,000 clouds coming and going. 100,000 immortals, and this is just a casual look. Fan Wu Jie was a country bumpkin in the universe, so he had never seen such a scene before. Even the great cultivation worlds in the universe could not afford to support too many immortals. Everyone usually hid in their respective mountains and only gathered when there was a major event. The elites of a world were naturally bigger than this, but they had never seen such a lively scene. It was like a country bumpkin in a feudal society who had transmigrated to the modern world, and just the people in the square was enough to scare him to death. Fan Wu Jie was like a scholar in the ancient times who suddenly transmigrated to a large commercial square in the modern world. There were not enough eyes for him to see. At this time, the two voices from before suddenly laughed, and Fan Wu Jie turned to look, only to see a young girl in green, leaning against a young girl in white who looked more mature, giggling. "Sister, look at that person. His expression is so funny." The young girl in green whispered into the ear of the young girl in white, obviously laughing at Fan Wu Jie. Fan Wu Jie's expression was slightly awkward. The young girl in white glanced at Fan Wu Jie, and her face showed shock. She pinched the young girl in green and said, "Little Qing, don't talk nonsense." Clearly, he could tell that Fan Wu Jie was an extraordinary person. Fan Wu Jie swept the two with his gaze. The white-robed woman was a peak-stage, celestial immortal, on the verge of becoming a Tao Lord. The azure-robed woman, however, had only just reached the celestial immortal level. She was not a small character, but she was not worthy of Fan Wu Jie's attention. Along the way, Tao monarchs were like dogs, and Dara was everywhere. I thought the universe had changed, and I didn't recognize them anymore, and I couldn't live anymore. Seeing the familiar heaven immortal trash, Fan Wu Jie felt the urge to cry. After adventuring in the ultimate for so long, he almost thought that he was worthless as a Tao monarch. Now he saw so many ants, and they all breathed heaven immortals, earth spirit, and weak rogue immortals. How wonderful! The game seems to have returned to the way I am familiar with. It is no longer hell mode. Fellow Taoist fan. The voice behind him made Fan Wu Jie freeze. He slowly turned his head, and sure enough, it was those three again. Yuan Yu looked around excitedly and mumbled, "Is this the prehistoric era?" Shuetu King was surrounded by a shadow of demonic energy, and he put his hand on Fan Wu Jie's shoulder passionately. The young girl in green, Little Qing, saw Shuetu, who reeked of blood, and Ajati, who had a cold face and sharp eyebrows, and a sword aura that kept people away. She pulled the young girl in white and said in a low voice, "Sister, these people don't look like good people. Let's stay away from them." "Little Qing, don't be so rude." The young girl in white bowed slightly to Fan Wu Jie and said, "Little Qing, please forgive me for offending you, fellow Taoists." Fan Wu Jie was finally released from the hellish mode, and he would not take such a small thing to heart. He immediately waved his hand, and said, "It's fine, but I heard you mention Prince Ziyong. We are all from small place. What kind of person is he?" When Fan Wujie revealed his weakness, little Qing could not help but look down on him, and she was also very curious. "There is someone in this world who does not know Prince Ziyong? You know Celestial Emperor Ziyong, right?" Fan Wujie shook his head honestly and said, "I do not know. What kind of remote place did you actually come from? You don't even know the important people in the heaven? Don't tell me you don't know the heaven." Little Qing said quickly, and the young girl in white seemed to be worried that Fan Wujie and the others would lose face. So she quickly pulled Little Qing and said in a reproachful tone, "Little Qing." Chapter 1289. Hearing that, Fan Wujie smiled and said, "My 3 senior brothers and I come from a poor and remote place. But no matter how ignorant we are, we naturally know about the prestige of the Heaven Court. Is it just that when we were experimenting with spells, we lost our way and landed here by mistake? Do you know where this place is? Why are there so many immortals coming and going in our small place? It is rare to even see a fellow immortal riding on a cloud. The 3 behind you have a strong ghostly aura around them, and their bodies reek of blood. They don't look like good people." Hiding behind the lady in white, Little Qing smiled slyly and said, "Who knows if they are traitors who are trying to sneak into today's grand meeting?" The lady in white advised softly, "Little Qing, don't talk nonsense. Sister, looking at how the 4 of them obviously have something to ask of you, I guess they're trying to get information out of us. These people have a strange background. If we get some information out of them, and if there is a mess later, won't we be implicated? It is better to be straightforward." Hearing that, Fan Wujie smiled awkwardly. He was indeed trying to get information out of them. Not to mention anything else, where was this place? And which era was this? Lest the heaven and earth split open in the next moment, and the ancient demon court descended through time and space, turning this auspicious grand meeting into a bloody battlefield. There was no way to escape. Beside him, the Shuetu king said in a low voice, "Little girl, don't say it. We 3 brothers are honest people. We have never done anything evil in our lives. Only this 4th brother is born to not know his place. His tongue is slippery, and he is not honest enough." Little Qing smiled coldly and said, "The smell of blood around you is so thick, your whole body is filled with murderous intent, and you look so overbearing. I can tell that you are a murderous person, and you still have the cheek to call yourself an honest person. And that white face next to you, his expression is cold, and when he raises his eyebrows, there's a sharp aura coming from him. He is obviously a sort of mortal who walks the path of no emotions. This kind of person does not recognize family. They are extremely ruthless. That white face in Taoist robe, on the other hand, seems to have some righteousness. But hanging around with you guys, he is definitely not a good person. And you." Little Qing turned her head and stared at Fan Wujie as she said, "You have a glib tongue, and you can't even hide the arrogance on your body. With just one look, I can tell that you are the kind of person who comes from a domineering and arrogant sect, and you have cultivated an air of arrogance that is not suitable for the times. Although the 3 of them are evil, they're still steady. You do not look like they're the same kind of people, and you look like your brothers. It would be strange if there is nothing fishy about this." Little Qing wrinkled her nose. Fan Wujie sighed, cupped his fists, and said, "This big brother of this little brother is known as the Butcher. He has a slaughtering skill passed down his family. Don't be fooled by the smell of blood and murderous intent. He is actually busy working all day. So, it is inevitable that he will be contaminated. This second brother of this little brother, although he does not smile on the surface, he is extremely loyal. He is a wanderer. This 3rd brother of this little brother is a scholar, a romantic, and has a large fire date forest at home. Only I, this little brother, am the son of an impoverished family. I have ruined my family business, and I travel the world with my 3 brothers." Fan Wujie cupped his fists and said, "What a glib tongue." Little Qing laughed coldly and said, "No matter what you say, I will not care. Sister, let's go. Don't get involved with these troublesome things." The lady in white only pressed on Little Qing's hand and said with a gentle smile, "Little Ching, even if there is trouble, we have stood here for so long. We have already fallen into the eyes of others, and there is no way to explain it." She turned around and said to Fan Wu Jie and the others, "Could it be that you have also heard that the Milky Way Navy is patrolling the area, and the Heaven Heavens patrolling the area on behalf of the Heaven Heavens? Are you here to show off your skills, to see if there's a strange person with a high background? The Milky Way Navy is patrolling?" Fan Wu Jie and the others looked at each other. It was Fan Wu Jie who took over the conversation. "The Heaven Heavens patrolling the area? Could it be that Prince Ziyang?" The lady in white smiled and said, "Yes, it is that Prince Ziyang. We are not sure which prince of Imperial Emperor Ziyang. We only know that his identity is incomparably noble. This southern bright barbarian region is just a small and desolate region in the wilderness, and the Heaven Heavens Milky Way Navy patrolling the wilderness only comes once every few years. Therefore, every time this festival comes, it is extremely lively. The Heaven Heavens patrolling the area has a name in this realm. It is called the Sky-Bearing Meeting. The Heaven Heavens patrolling the area has the responsibility of patrolling the area. Therefore, there are often strange people who show some of their skills during the Sky-Bearing Meeting and serve the patrolling envoy, hoping to be recommended to the Heaven Heavens and earn their status." The lady in white was not sure if it was intentional, but she avoided probing into their background and only said some information that was known to everyone, but it also helped Fan Wu Jie and the others to fill in the gaps. Although the southern bright barbarian region was just a corner of the wilderness, it was bigger than any of the heavens in the future. Today was the day when the Heaven Heavens patrolled the area, and no one knew how many cultivators and immortals would rush over. The flow of people was extremely complicated, and it was impossible to find out everyone's background. The lady in white did not say much, but she just happened to tell them when and where, and also, intentionally or unintentionally, filled in the gaps in their background now that they heard that the Heaven Heavens patrolling the area was patrolling, in order to get his recommendation and be conferred a title by the Heaven Heavens. A few rogue cultivators rushed over from a remote and desolate place, became sworn brothers, and set foot on this pleasure boat. With this kind of background, there were no obvious flaws. Fan Wu Jie and the others were also tactful, and after getting the lady in white's secret information, they did not harass her anymore, lest they bring any trouble to her. The wilderness was extremely vast, and it was also Fan Wu Jie's first time seeing the entire wilderness. The pleasure boat he was on was sailing in the sky above the 9 heavens. In the world of heavens, it was almost the end of the 9 heavens, but here it was just touching the clouds. Below the boat was a sea of clouds, and in the sea of clouds, there were extremely tall divine peaks that broke through the clouds, overlooking the sea of clouds. The pleasure boat sailed between the mountains, as if it was swimming in a canyon. Looking down from the pleasure boat, both sides of the boat were stone walls that were tens of thousands of feet high. Extremely strong gusts of wind were shuttling under the layers of clouds, polishing the stone walls of the divine peaks and giving them a luster that looked like green jade. Fan Wu Jie only had to estimate the layer of gusts of wind underneath the pleasure boat with his eyes, and he was able to recognize a few gusts of wind that were considered extremely fierce in the entire universe. For example, the water, fire, ice, soul, astral wind, the heaven-shattering bone astral wind, the 3 realms freezing wind. These heavenly winds and astral winds, even heaven immortals would be flustered if they encountered them. There were so many immortals here, and even the cultivators who had not become immortals, who had passed through the restrictive passage in the belly of the divine mountain, ascended to the layer of the astral wind and the sea of clouds, where the airflow was stable. Then they switched to the pleasure boat and rode on all kinds of flying mounts. Those who were a little worse off could only ride on the clouds, and in the end, even the color of the clouds was not right, so they could only wrap themselves in a gust of black wind, driving the evil wind, and they were not discriminated against. These mountains that passed through the layer of astral wind and stood tall above the sea of clouds, some of them had been polished into huge palaces that looked like green or white jade. There were also immortal herbs and jade-like flowers, which looked like a palace garden. On the mountains of the isolated islands in the sea of clouds, the immortals who came and went rode on cranes and dragons. Compared to the immortals during the era of the universe, it was really unbelievably free and easy. Especially when Fan Wujie observed carefully, he found that the slightly more exquisite magical treasures and flying ships were all made of innate items, which were extremely precious in the future, innate items that even Dao lords had to carefully trade with. But here, there were so many of them that they were like dirt, and everyone could afford them, and they were not precious at all. Whether it was the mounts of the immortals or the birds and beasts that ran around the mountains, they were all ancient species, rare and precious beasts. The huge flying ships and pleasure boats were all piled up with a huge amount of divine wood that was 100,000 years old and 1,000,000 years old, carved with dragons and phoenixes. Although the restrictive spells attached to them were powerful, they completely relied on the properties of the materials. It seemed like the divine craftsmen here did not care about the materials, but the cost of the work. Although many of the restrictive spells were powerful, one could tell at a glance that they were not meticulously polished, and the subsequent refinement and maintenance were not paid much attention. This made Fan Wujie feel like his heart was being cut by a knife. Fan Wujie beat his chest and stamped his feet, thinking, "Our Fan family has 1,000,000-years-old divine wood forest, and it is the family's heritage, a forbidden land that lives and dies with the Brahma heaven realm. How spoiled was I when I was young? Even moving the branches of those divine trees would get me beaten up. You guys only use shavings and even hollowed-out carvings. Hollowed out is not only a waste, it also lowers the strength of the structure, just for that little bit of beauty. What a waste. Why doesn't the heavenly Tao strike you wasteful spirits with lightning?" The corner of Fan Wujie's mouth twitched, but the Shui-Tu king did not care about him. He stared at the dragon beast of an immortal not far away and said in a low voice, "Is that a true dragon? Its bloodline is very pure." Ajadi also whispered, "That Paishio is not bad too, wow. What a majestic beast. This must be the blue eyes golden swanee. The one riding it is actually a heaven immortal. Second brother, help me cover up. I'll be back soon." The Shui-Tu king, who prided himself on being an honest man, had his eyes reddened. He picked up the demonic blood knife that he carried with him and transformed it into the shape of an axe, wanting to sneak up. Yuan Yu hurriedly pulled him back. "Let's get down to business. Don't cause trouble." At this time, a heavenly general dressed like a heavenly general rode a water-repelling golden-eyes beast, stepping on the sea of clouds. This connate life form with the ability to repel water, a strange beast that could repel water, stepped on the sea of clouds, stirring up waves on the sea of clouds and sending the golden-armored heavenly general far away. Yuan Yu's hand loosened, and he was stunned, his eyes also turning red. These ancient beasts, there are ancient beasts everywhere, and there are even primordial beasts. Connate divine beasts, they are everywhere. Years ago, just to get a little dragon blood, I risked defending the Four Seas Dragon Clan and killed one of their water gods. I was chased everywhere in the heavenly realm sea, and they destroyed 8 of my fake identities. The people here are riding them openly. The Shui-Tu king was heartbroken. Aren't they afraid of offending the Four Seas Dragon Clan? So you were the one who did that. Yuan Yu suddenly opened another unsolved case in the universe, but he still said in a low voice, "Back then, how many direct descendants of the Four Seas Dragon Clan were there? How many are there now? Dragons are lustful by nature, and the primordial dragons are probably still overflowing. They can't even take care of their own clansmen, let alone these bastards." Fan Wujie and the others were, after all, experienced. So what if the cultivation resources here were abundant? He had even seen the destruction of the universe with his own eyes and the return of all Daos. But now he had to calm himself down and focus on the most important thing. Fan Wujie borrowed a strand of the power of the cosmic vine, condensed the cosmic true water in his eyes, and he could see the shadows of the people around him in the river of time, the shadows of the past and the future. He was very unfamiliar with the primordial era, and he was not used to the extremely powerful innate great Tao of time here, and even the 3,000 great Taoists. But under the pressure of the 3,000 great Taoists, he could barely see clearly. Most of the immortals and cultivators who came and went were below them in the realm of Tao fruit. But compared to the cultivators of the same cultivation base in the heavenly realm, they were generally hundreds or even tens of thousands of times stronger. The huge gap in this range in terms of resources, understanding of the great Taoists, temperament, vision, physique, and even aptitude lagged behind in all aspects. Additionally, the habits of these cultivators were different as well. Cultivators from the myriad celestial planes were used to fighting each other. Battles of life and death were very common. They would never allow others to find any openings in them. Thus, the techniques they cultivated and the techniques they were proficient in were very complicated. Thus, they would not allow others to find any openings in them. But the immortals and cultivators of the primordial era did not fight frequently, and most of them only cultivated one divine ability to protect their Tao. Even if they refined many magical treasures, most of them focused on refining one. What they pursued was to fight as little as possible. Once they found it hard to retreat, they would use their most powerful divine ability to decide the outcome in a battle of life and death. From the looks of it, it was naturally more cost-effective to specialize in one divine ability and use it to protect the Tao. If the cultivators of the heavenly realm met the primordial cultivators of the same cultivation base, they would lose in the first 10 battles. After 10 battles, there would be winners and losers, and after 100 battles, the odds of winning would be higher. Moreover, this was only the short-term data. Once the primordial cultivators were given a period of time, they would also recultivate the magic and divine abilities to restrain their opponents. It seems that the primordial era was more peaceful than the heavenly realm. Fan Wu Jie said, in surprise. This seemed to be a little different from his impression. Perhaps it's because the battles in the primeval age weren't decided by a few top experts. Instead, they were decided by a more comprehensive, large-scale, thorough, and destructive form. The blood-soaked demon monarch said in a complicated tone. When Fan Wu Jie heard this, he also remembered the glimpse they had before they escaped into the space-time. It was like a universe that had appeared in the chaotic sea. It was so vast and powerful that it could not be described with words. Even if countless pawns like them came, they would still be reduced to dust in front of it, the Archean divine court, or rather, the archaic demon court. 360 ancient stars in the universe, countless divine palaces and palaces, layers upon layers of space-time, innumerable innate gods, celestial soldiers, and celestial generals, and together, they form an enormous heaven realm that was beyond the imagination of Fan Wu Jie and the others. The heavenly palace had cast a deep shadow on Fan Wu Jie and the others. So much so that when the archaic divine court used the bell of chaos to break the primordial chaos and invade the space-time where the archaic heavenly court was, the four of them lost the courage to resist and only wanted to escape from that timeline. As the pleasure boats gradually sailed into the wider cloud sea canyon, rows upon rows of flying pleasure boats came and went. They had already arrived at the main route of the cloud sea canyon. At this moment, a huge fleet of ships that cast a shadow as large as a mountain and covered the entire sky slowly sailed towards them from higher up in the sky. This was a fleet that was built for the sake of war, for the sake of great destructive power. Countless innate metals piled up to form the hull of the ship like a mountain range, and the sails were like a continent laid horizontally. Countless strands of magnetic energy turned into thunder and lightning, intertwining on the hull of the ship. The magnetic energy contained in the hull of the ship and the heavy magnetic energy of the primordial earth repelled each other, causing the huge ship to float in the sky. The friction between the magnetic energy produced countless strands of divine lightning, driving this huge warship of all heavens. Under the shadow of the fleet of the Milky Way Navy, Fan Wu Jie felt an indescribable shock in his heart. With the power of the heavenly court, who could rival it? Perhaps the only ones who could destroy the heavenly court were the immortal court of the primordial gods that ruled the primordial world, and the heavenly palace that was like a fortress. Chapter 1290. The Shwetu king and Ajadi were also secretly observing the Sky Bear Festival. After an hour, the Shwetu king whispered to Fan Wujie, "Fourth brother, most of the cultivators here have deep foundations, which our small place can't compare with. But most of them haven't even touched the threshold, so there aren't many people worth paying attention to." Fan Wujie also noticed this. There were many golden immortals and Tao lords with deep cultivation in the Bright Savage region, but none of them had reached the threshold of Dara. Logically speaking, with the foundation and number of Tao lords in the primordial universe, the number of Tao lords who had reached the threshold of Dara was definitely not limited to what they had seen. Fan Wujie frowned, feeling that things were not as simple as they seemed. Only when he thought of the incomparably thick 3,000 great Taos of the primordial universe and the pressure of the Khanate Great Tao did he come to a realization. Yes, this place is not like the heavenly age, where the Great Tao is extremely tight and heavy. It gives the cultivation of Tao lords and golden immortals convenience and a strong foundation, but it also makes the Great Tao wider and more vast. In the heavenly age, Tao lords can easily encounter bottlenecks due to the fragility of the world. But in the primordial universe, where the Great Tao is almost limitless, Tao lords and golden immortals cannot encounter bottlenecks at all. The primordial universe's Tao lords and golden immortals can probably cultivate endlessly. Without great opportunities, they will never reach the bottleneck of Tao lords. Stepping into the threshold of Dara is more than 10,000 times harder than in the heavenly age. In the heavenly age, the Tao lord's realm is shallow, and with a little improvement, they will reach the bottleneck of the heavenly Tao, which makes it easier for them to reach the threshold of Dara. The characteristics of Dara are proven once and for all. Don't worry about how we took advantage of the degradation of the universe to touch the threshold of Dara. Once we stand on it, we will stand on the threshold of Dara forever. Even in the primordial universe, it will not regress. Thinking of this, Fan Wujie drew a cold breath. Tao lords and golden immortals have no bottlenecks and can cultivate without restrictions. Then how strong was the foundation of Tao lords in the primordial universe? Of course, if you say that the foundation is meaningful, then it's very meaningful. If you say that it's meaningless, then it's just that, compared to the Tao lords of the primordial era, Brahma Wujie and the others had very shallow foundations. Although the ceiling above the heads of Tao lords had never been there, it had been there, and then it had been much lower. But at the same time, the threshold of Dara had been lowered a lot. Once one stepped in, they would be in two different worlds. A strong foundation was for the sake of that leap. If one's foundation wasn't strong enough, their feet wouldn't be stable. Once they stepped out, they would fall into a bottomless abyss, unable to climb back up. But for those with a weak foundation, if they could take that step, there were plenty of ways to eliminate future troubles. Perhaps, compared to the harvest, these could not even be considered future troubles. Fan Wujie was clear in his heart that he had taken advantage of the universe's downgrade in order to step onto that doorstep. But once he took that step, the realm would be completely different. At the Skybearer banquet, there were many Tao lords whose foundations, divine abilities, immortal energy, and spirit treasures far surpassed his, but there were only a few who could compare to him in terms of comprehension. Of course, this didn't mean that their combat power, immortal energy, or divine abilities were superior to those of the Tao lords here who had yet to touch upon Dara. Dara's characteristics were just a step for Tao lords to get closer to Dara, to get closer to the ultimate level. With Dara's characteristics, one could change the state of one's existence, possess some strange characteristics that ordinary Tao lords would find strange. In some aspects, one would have a higher level of authority than ordinary Tao lords. But if Fan Wujie felt that his divine abilities and immortal energy were monstrous and invincible, who knew how many people present could teach him a lesson? Fan Wujie was deeply touched and said, "Big Brother's right. This is indeed the chaos world. There are many handsome people here, but most of them don't need to pay too much attention. Even if we can't beat them, we can still run away. With Dara's characteristics, it's easy to shake off those Tao Lords who have yet to reach the doorstep. Only those who truly stand on the doorstep need us to pay more attention and be careful not to provoke them. A golden immortal who could stand on the doorstep of Dara in the Chaos world would not need much effort to deal with us. Fan Wujie didn't know why Shui Tu King had to speak even though they could communicate telepathically. But he knew that compared to a newbie like him, experienced people like Shui Tu, Wu Shang, and Yuan Yu had more tricks up their sleeves. They were well-versed in the ways of the world and would never do something meaningless. Thus, he calmly obeyed and spoke his mind. It was just that there were many disguises in his words, saying things that only they could understand, so that others could only understand half of it. As soon as he finished speaking, he heard a sneer from the flying ship beside him that did not contain any malice. Fan Wujie's heart skipped a beat. They really came. He glanced at the direction of the laughter. It was a jade flying ship that was dozens of times bigger than the pleasure boat they were on. A young man, who was draped in a fox cape and stepped on a dragon soulworm grass that had at least 7 transformations, spun silk shoes when he transformed into a silkworm, made Fan Wujie's eyes turn red. Even though he looked at them with disdain, there was no malice in his eyes. He looked at Fan Wujie with interest. The way he looked at Fan Wujie was like he was looking at a beggar. There was a faint smile and curiosity in his eyes. Most of it was because the few of them were dressed in rags. They looked like a few rogue cultivators who had escaped from a destitute place. Their tone was so unbelievably arrogant that he found it funny. Fan Wujie and the others did not feel anything, because compared to the rich and powerful people of the primordial era, the 4 of them were indeed so poor that they only had their underwear left. The shoes they were wearing were made from the silk spun by the dragon soulworm grass that even people like Great Master Fajing treasured. Even though their realms were slightly higher, people like Shui Tu King and Ajadi had inherited a bit of the demonic path and were involved in the incident of the Ruins of End. They had seen Dara and knew more secrets. But being poor was still being poor. Was there anything wrong with being discriminated against because of being poor? He had the ability, status, knowledge, and connections. But so what if he was poor? He was just a beggar sect leader? Should he be discriminated against by the rich, or should he be discriminated against? Fan Wujie glanced at Shui Tu King. Shui Tu had definitely seen the young man long ago, and that was why he deliberately spoke. What kind of person was Shui Tu? He was most likely able to see through the character and temper of the young man with just a glance. Even the tone of his voice and the temperament that he was showing now were specially disguised to target him. Although Fan Wujie's acting skills had not reached that level, he could also feel the change in the temperament and behavior of the 3 people around him, especially the small movements that Yuan Yu made. It was like he had just come from a small place. He had some knowledge, but had not seen much of the world. He was arrogant and had some ability, but was also overconfident. He was handsome and had not been hit by reality. He looked like an outstanding rogue cultivator who was commonly known as a country bumpkin. Fan Wujie sighed inwardly. He had waited until things had developed to this point before he could guess all these. These 3 old actors directly targeted the surface phenomenon that they had observed, grasped the rules under the surface of things, and secretly made arrangements to create this opportunity. At the same time, they maintained a tacit understanding of the Tao of acting. They used micro-expressions and acting skills to tell a story for the young man. Details determined success or failure. Fan Wujie secretly felt ashamed. He was still too weak. If he wanted to surpass these 3 people in terms of acting skills and craftiness, he still needed to learn. He understood many things in an instant, and he carefully tried to figure out the mentality of the young man. He first used his appearance and the expression of the young man to write a profile of him. The young man did not show any evil intentions towards them. After Shui Tu King and the others had acted arrogantly, he did not show any extreme reaction. This meant that he was not the kind of person who had a particularly high concept of hierarchy, and was not the kind of person who would kill and seize the lives of those below him. He was silently tricked by Shui Tu and Yuan Yu, and he had not reacted to it until now. This meant that he was relatively shallow in terms of worldly wisdom. Fan Wu Jie calmly analyzed, and he instantly found the reason why Xue Tu and the others had tricked him. They were obviously trying to pull a line of information. In this primordial era, was there a custom of explaining to passers-by every time there was a major event, to provide accurate information, to be well-informed, and to grasp the countless secrets of the myriad tribulations? At this time, did they not need to prepare their own on-site commentator? Back then, Fan Wu Jie had been tricked by the tradition of passers-by. When he first entered the ruins of End, a group of big shots from the demon clan added fuel to the fire, causing a conflict between him and the Dragon Prince. A group of big shots disguised themselves as passers-by, and every action of theirs was explained without any secrets. They had to make sure that the onlookers could understand and watch the show. It was said that this was an old tradition passed down from Patriarch River Styx. Ever since Patriarch River Styx, the Demon Clan had a tradition of having big shots disguise themselves as passers-by to explain and sow discord whenever something major happened. In the end, no one could even tell whether they felt that the matter was not big enough, or whether they just wanted to stir things up, or whether they wanted to sow discord and create discord. Or perhaps they were simply onlookers who did not mind the matter getting bigger. Were they trying to sow discord? But they even tricked their own people. Sometimes they would stir things up even when it was clearly not beneficial to the Demon Clan. Later, someone boldly guessed that perhaps Patriarch River Styx was a troublemaker, but he liked to watch from the sidelines. So there was this old tradition. Later, this person disappeared inexplicably. But this was a common thing in the untainted land, and his guess was too ridiculous, so was not taken seriously. That young man hid it so well. It was estimated that Xue Tu and the others had screened many people before they found this person who knew a lot and was easy to trick. Fan Wu Jie gave Xue Tu and the others a look and said, "Do you need to cooperate?" His temperament suddenly changed, and the expression of raising his head to look at the emerald flying ship was slightly provocative, but it was a signal to Xue Tu and the others. Next is the black face, the white face, the provocation. Should I pretend to be the enemy, provoke the other party, make him speak without thinking, and get information? Or should I slowly get close to him, build a friendship, and adopt the method of making friends? Or should I do neither, keep a certain distance, and slowly get information out of him? Xue Tu stretched out his hand, signaling Fan Wu Jie not to act rashly. The few of you are truly shameless. You actually dare to speak such nonsense. Among all the fellow Taoists that come and go, only a few of them are worthy of your attention. Why don't you tell me, who do you think highly of? At this time, a familiar female voice came from the pavilion of the pleasure boat. Little Qing pushed open the window of the pleasure boat, leaned on the balcony, and said to Fan Wu Jie and the others. Fan Wu Jie's heart moved, and he finally understood the trick Xue Tu and the others played. Not only did they trick that young man, but even Little Qing's reaction was also within their expectations. At this time, a strange feeling arose in Fan Wu Jie's heart. It seemed that the people of the untainted land were too naive. Little Qing was more shrewd, but she could not even see through the first level of the Xue Tu and the others, and could not even compare to Fan Wu Jie. At this time, Fan Wu Jie felt a faint trace of pride. At this time, Fan Wu Jie felt a faint trace of pride. Even in our era, the resources, the foundation, the culture, and even the culture or cultivation are not as good as theirs. At least we are more cunning than them. At least our acting skills are better than theirs. Xue Tu looked at the person in front of him. That person had a white beard and white hair, and he was riding on a huge koan, swimming freely in the sea of clouds. He was holding a wine gourd, and he was pouring wine into his mouth. The murky wine flowed down his beard, and his long, knotted beard was messily tangled together. His hair was not much better than his beard, and it was carelessly tied into a bun, and a tree branch was stuck into it. Xue Tu's face lit up, and he said, "This person is one of them." The young man on the jade-green flying boat looked over curiously, and when he saw that person, he was a little disappointed, and then he frowned, as if he had thought of something. Little Qing wanted to mock him, but when she saw that ordinary-looking Taoist, who even seemed to be mocking him, she did not know why she could not say anything. The woman in white also walked out from the pleasure boat, and she looked at that Taoist. That Taoist has an extraordinary bearing, but I can't tell how strong he is. Fellow Taoist, please enlighten me. The huge koan under him is extraordinary. Shuetu King said plainly, Second brother, do you remember a type of koan that cannot transform into a pung? Big brother, are you talking about the sea-swallowing koan? Ajadi looked at the huge koan, and he smiled. Big brother, you have a good eye? When the koan pung spreads its wings, the most important thing is to accumulate. If the accumulation of water is not deep enough, it will be powerless to carry the big boat. Therefore, when a cup of water is placed on the hull, the mustard becomes the boat, and when the cup is placed, the boat becomes glue. The shallow water makes the boat big. If the accumulation of wind is not deep enough, it will be powerless to carry the big wings. Therefore, for 90,000 miles, the wind will be below. When the koan pung flies with the wind, the most important thing is to accumulate. Whether it is the huge koan floating on the water or the huge pung spreading its wings, it must carry the qi of vitality. It views the qi of heaven and earth as feng shui. Everything in the world, whether it is the qi of heaven and earth, or whether it is the qi of heaven and earth, is like feng shui to the koan pung. Looking at it with a secret method, you can see the koan pung controlling the world like a big piece. Nan Huazhiren said, if a big piece of qi is called the wind, only when there is no action. When there is action, 10,000 orifices will roar in anger. It really explains the secret of the koan pung controlling the wind. When the koan pung spreads its wings, everything is wind and water. There are clear and turbid qi in the primordial world. The clear qi rises to the sky, and the turbid qi sinks to the ground. Between the clear and turbid, there is qi of vitality as the wind. When ordinary people see the koan pung spreading its wings, they think that it is the wind supporting its wings. In fact, the koan pung regards the world as feng shui, and the turbid qi is like wind and water. The earth is the qi of vitality, and the 9 heavens support it. Therefore, looking at it with a secret method, when the koan pung flies in the sky, there is a huge attraction between the countless stars in the Milky Way. These forces are borrowed by the koan pung, causing the countless stars to pull its wings and fly. Looking at the ground again, there is magnetic force on the ground, and the big piece of qi of vitality is the magnetic force. The koan pung reverses the magnetic force and uses the wind to exert force on the ground, so it can fly. When the koan pung spreads its wings, it can borrow the power of the world. Therefore, even if the qi of vitality is exhausted, as long as the world can still bear it, the koan pung can fly. There are many koan immortals here, but most of them borrow the clouds to form the sea, and use the heavenly water to transform into clouds. Only a few giant pungs can borrow the qi of heaven and earth to fly. As long as the qi is not exhausted, they will not fall. But looking at the invisible power of the stars in the 9 heavens, and the earth tens of thousands of feet below, the only one that can borrow the power of heaven and earth to fly majestically is the great koan that the Taoist priest sits on. Moreover, there's a difference between the koan and the pung. The koan controls the world like water, while the pung controls the world like wind. This koan controls the sky like water, and the earth like wind. This is the unique characteristic of the ancient giant sea-devouring koan. The giant sea-devouring koan looks like a koan, but it is actually a koan pung. When it metamorphoses into a pung, it still retains its koan form. In this form, it has the characteristics of a koan pung, so it is difficult for people to recognize it. The power of a koan pung is usually related to the size of the heaven and earth it controls. The koan pung controls a large piece of land, and I can sense strong magnetic force everywhere in the vast land of the bright barbaric region. It is obvious that its strength is extraordinary. Perhaps it is a real adult koan pung. On the emerald flying ship, there was a long silence before the young master said, "You all have extraordinary eyesight. Even though we can sense the restlessness of the magnetic force in the bright barbaric region, we all thought that it was the Milky Way Navy's giant magnetic warship that flew through the sky. Only you all can clearly distinguish the veins of the magnetic force and see through the true form of the giant sea devouring Cohen. This makes the pearl stand out among the fish. This little one has learned something." The young master bowed slightly and said, "I wonder if you all are willing to come aboard my flying ship. If you don't mind, can you travel with me and identify the experts of the Sky Baron Grand Meet?" Chapter 1291. Shwetu King let out a long laugh. Channeling his arcane energy, he brought the three of them with him and turned into a blood-red bolt of lightning, landing on the deck of the emerald flying ship. With a flash of light, the four of them landed in front of the young child. The young child invited the four of them to take a seat and personally poured wine for them. "Brothers, you have a good eye. I'm really impressed by your accuracy." Shwetu King took a sip of wine and smiled. "Oh, from what you've said, you seem to know the background of that Taoist. We four brothers came from a small place, so we're a little ignorant. Please tell us." Yuan Yu cupped his hands and asked curiously, "This person has a great background. Fellow Taoists, do you know that in the mystic door, there are 4 spiritual masters under the 3 pure deities? Although he's not the direct disciple of the mystic door, he's still an orthodox disciple. His arcane energy and cultivation are higher than the direct disciples of the mystic door, and he's a friend of the 3 pure deities." The young child seemed to be testing him. Yuan Yu closed his mouth and pondered for a few breaths of time before he said indifferently, "Fellow Taoist, are you talking about Taoist Nanhua Zhuangzi, Taoist Tongxian's Wenzi, Taoist Chongsu's Lai Zi, and Taoist Dongling's Kongzi?" The young child was shocked. These 4 ancient celestial lords are extremely old, and they're not from any big sections. They're free and unfettered. Even in the mystic door, not many people know about them. Even in the mystic door, including the direct disciples of the Jade Mirage Palace and Aquamarine Palace, there's still the 4 true deities under the 3 pure deities. They're also great experts of the mystic door. Fellow Taoist, you're so familiar with such ancient secrets, yet you say you're ignorant? Yuan Yu said, "Tian Wang and Yi Lao only know some ancient things by chance. How can they be considered knowledgeable? They're just some untimely things." Fellow Taoist, please continue. Fan Wu Jie interrupted. "Could this person be the incarnation of the 4 spiritual masters?" The young man smiled and said, "If the 4 of you were here, I wouldn't dare to neglect you. I would have gone up to welcome you and ask for your guidance." The 4 enlightened masters were led by the enlightened Nanhua. The enlightened Nanhua had a long history of immortality. Although he was not famous, his position in the mystic door was extremely high. Any youngster of the younger generation who could learn a thing or 2 from him would have great achievements. Just like Tao Lord 8 sceneries. Yuan Yu's expression changed slightly as he said in a deep voice, "If that's the case, could this person be the one who obtained Nanhua's opportunity and obtained the Tao?" The young man was very eloquent, and his words were friendly. He could be considered to be approachable. He drank and chatted merrily with Fan Wu Jie and the others. "That's right. This Taoist priest's common name is Zhang Jiao. He once had a fortuitous encounter and was taught the great Tao by Nanhua the Enlightened. Together with 3 friends, he comprehended a profound Tao called Peace Scripture. He had 2 fellow Taoists, Enlightens with Ci and Old Deity Ug. They were known as the 3 friends of Nanhua. Together, they cultivated 3 volumes of Peace Scripture. The volume that Zhang Jiao cultivated was called Peace and Purity Scripture. Later, the 3 of them went their separate ways due to disagreements on the Great Tao. Zhang Jiao then founded a great sect in the primordial world, the Peace Tao, and taught them the Peace and Purity Scripture. Today, it is also a great sect of the Mystic Door. So it's him. Fan Wu Jie was shocked. This inconspicuous Taoist priest Qi Kuan had an even greater background than he had imagined. Although the Peace Tao did not become an orthodox sect of the Mystic Door and gradually declined, It was once a great sect that was famous in the primordial world and left behind legends in the future. This Zhang Jiao was also a famous figure in the future. He was the one who started the rebellion of the Mystic Door and tried to establish the Mystic Door's celestial court. He was a powerful figure who was known as the great sage and good teacher. After all, Fan Wu Jie's cultivation was still shallow. When he remembered this traitor of the celestial court, he could not help but reveal his thoughts on his face. Although the young man was not very shrewd, he still had the basic ability to read people's expressions. When he saw the strange expression on Fan Wu Jie's face, he asked, "Brother, do you have something to say?" Fan Wu Jie had no choice but to dodge the question. "I just think that a figure like this actually wants to come and pay homage to a small inspector of the celestial court." "Huh?" The young man laughed and said, "Brother, why do you say that? Although Zhang Jiao has some abilities, how can he be compared to the celestial court? If the inspector of the celestial court looks up to him, who knows how great of a fortune it will be? How dare he not come and pay homage to the celestial court? Although the Peace Tao has some influence, but under the feet of the celestial court, it is no more than an ant. How can it not tremble in fear? If the Peace Tao wants to develop, it must follow the order of the celestial court. If it violates the rules of the celestial court, it will be destroyed in the blink of an eye. Zhang Jiao does not have a title or a noble title, nor does he have a foothold in the celestial court. If he wants to develop the Peace Tao, how dare he not curry favor with the celestial court?" Fan Wu Jie was shocked and said, "The Peace Tao is also a great sect of the Mystic Door, the orthodoxy of Nanhua the Enlightened. Does the celestial court look down on such a great sect?" The young man shook his head and said, "Zhang Jiao does have some foothold, but he's only clinging to Nanhua the Enlightened. How can he be the true heir of the Mystic Door? If Nanhua the Enlightened came personally, the celestial court would not dare to neglect him. Brother, I think you see the celestial court as a powerful sect that can suppress the world. Many disciples of the sects and people of the sects grew up in the sects, so they always speculate about the celestial court from the perspective of the sections. They think the celestial court is just a powerful sect like the Mystic Door and the Witchcraft sect. But in the primordial universe, the celestial court is the heaven. It is the ruler surpassing all the great sects and sections. The celestial court is not a sect or a sect. It is the heaven." The young man said domineeringly, "Those sects and sects are like small tribes in the wilderness, and the celestial court is the supreme celestial court that rules over the primordial universe. Those small tribes think that the dynasty is an especially powerful tribe, and that they are equal to the celestial court. But they are just the common people under the rule of the celestial court. In the eyes of the celestial court, the so-called great sects and sects are just some big families in the countryside. At most, they're local tyrants. Although they are strong, they are nothing in the eyes of the supreme celestial court. All reincarnation, karma, seasons, weather, the sun, the moon, the stars, the veins of the earth are all managed by the celestial court. It is the great unification of divine power. Theoretically, all the power in the primordial universe belongs to the celestial court. These sects and sects are just the local autonomous mountains under the rule of the celestial court. Usually, they kill and rob in their own territories, and the celestial court doesn't care. They just need to adjust the fate of the sects and sects a little. After they die and reincarnate, they will settle the accounts. If they offend the celestial court too much and attract the attention of the celestial court, they will be destroyed in a flash. Even the supreme sects like the Mystic Door, the Sand Sect, and the Demon Sect have to follow the rules of the celestial court after they are conferred by the celestial court. They can only hide in their own territories. The Demon Sect hides in the Blood Sea. The Sand Sect establishes its religion in the Western Wasteland, and the Mystic Door preaches in the primordial universe. However, the three pure ones can only stand in a few Taoist rites. Those with great divine abilities can only protect their own Taoist rites. Outside their Taoist rites is the land of the celestial court, and everyone is the people of the celestial court. The young man pointed at Zhang Jiao and said with a smile, "Although the Taiping cult master is a mighty figure in front of us, he is just a tyrant in the eyes of the Celestial Court. The Celestial Court's Milky Way Navy patrols everywhere, and the patrolling envoys are equivalent to envoys representing the Celestial Court. How would Zhang Jiao dare to offend them?" They did not conceal their conversation, and little Qing, who was leaning on the window of the pleasure boat beside them, understood what they were talking about. She turned to the woman in white and said, "Sister, so that Taoist priest is the Taiping cult master. No wonder I sensed something just now and didn't dare to blaspheme him." The woman in white sighed and said, "Although the Taiping cult is very well behaved and has a good atmosphere in the cult, they are overbearing. They are not polite to us wild demon spirits, and their patriarch should have the same temper. It's not convenient for us to go up and ask for guidance. Sister, isn't Goddess Li Shan fond of you? Why don't you?" "Little Qing, we are greatly indebted to Goddess Li Shan. I only came here to look for opportunities after receiving her advice. However, I also need to avoid the great tribulation before I achieve the Tao in the future. Only then will I have the chance to become a disciple of Goddess Li Shan. If I hide in Mount Li and don't dare to face the tribulation, do you think Goddess Li Shan will think highly of me?" Those four weirdos are quite capable. They were actually able to find an important figure like the Taiping cult master among the countless cultivators. Little Qing said enviously, "It looks like I've spoiled Sister's plans. Perhaps the opportunity you're looking for is among those four?" The woman in white also frowned and thought to herself, "Before I left, Goddess Li Shan divined that I would have an opportunity to achieve the Tao and also a great tribulation. Goddess Li Shan drew the word Mu on my hand. The Tao is full of perils, and encountering a Mu gives birth. The tribulation is not over, and there will be fate in the next life. What does the word Mu refer to? I'm at a loss. These four people have strange origins. They clearly have some fate. Could it be that Mu is among them? But among these four, there's a butcher, a swordsman, a Taoist, and a scholar. Why isn't there a shepherd?" The woman in white cast aside these irrelevant thoughts and pulled little Qing's hand. "Sister, why do you lose your composure when it comes to me? These people have strange origins, and we shouldn't provoke them. Many people lose their composure in the face of tribulations and lose their usual caution. Although I'm facing a tribulation, the more it is so, the more I should be careful. As long as my words and actions are normal and I don't lose my composure, I will be able to see clearly when the tribulation comes. I will be able to grasp the sequence of the tribulation and escape." On the jade flying ship, Fan Wu Jie was silent for a long time before he let out a breath and said, "Young master, please don't laugh at us. The four of us are lowly people from the mountains, and we thought that with our abilities, we wouldn't be able to stand out anywhere. We didn't even put the celestial heavens in our eyes. Now that we see the Taiping cult master, who is stronger and more capable than us, we have no choice but to lower our heads in front of the celestial heavens. Just now, I realized that the water in the primordial world is indeed much deeper than that of our small and desolate place. To put it bluntly, our abilities are nothing more than mediocre." The young man slammed the table and said with a smile, "For brothers, you must be joking. Although the Taiping cult master is trapped in the celestial heavens, he is still an important figure who can suppress an area. Since the four of you are so capable, where can't you shine? You will definitely have a bright future in the future. Now that the celestial heavens patrol is here, there is a rule of inspection. Unlike the Taiping cult master, the four of you are not involved with the Taiping cult, so the karma on you is extremely heavy. You will definitely gain the favor of the important figures in the celestial heavens, and from then on, you will stand out and have a bright future." Fan Wu Jie suddenly laughed and said, "I wonder if young master is an important figure in the celestial heavens?" The young man was slightly stunned. Then he shook his head and said with a smile, "I am just an idler. I admire the four of you very much, but it is a pity that I don't have any power in my hands, and I don't have any official position. It is fine to be friends with the four of you, but if I were to recruit followers, wouldn't I be a laughing stock? Shwetu and Ajadi looked at each other, and they acted like they were ready to make a move. Shwetu was the first to speak. We were chatting happily with young master, but we didn't announce our names, which is obviously a little impolite. I am Reverend Pao Tu, and this is my younger brother Layman Shanshong, my third brother Jinyangzi, and my fourth brother Wu Jie. The young man smiled and said, "My name is Mu, so it is young master Mu." Shwetu cupped his fists and said, "I am just a country bumpkin, and I do not know the proper etiquette. Please forgive me, young master Mu." Young master Mu smiled and said, "I feel like old friends with the four of you. Why do you have to be so polite? Everyone, let's have a toast." Fan Wu Jie drained his cup in one gulp, wiped the corner of his mouth, and said, "The four of us are looking for a future in the celestial heavens, but we do not know the ins and outs of the celestial heavens, so we hope Brother Mu can give us some pointers. The celestial heavens inspector this time is the eldest son of Celestial Emperor Ziyang, Bo Jun. I have never had any dealings with him, so I'm afraid it will be difficult for me to introduce him to the four of you," young Master Mu said calmly. Fan Wu Jie noticed that when young Master Mu mentioned Prince Bo Jun, his expression turned cold, and the guards on the Emerald Flying Ship, especially the old man who followed behind young Master Mu, showed a hint of anger when he heard about Prince Bo Jun. Fan Wu Jie immediately understood what was going on. How is this not having any dealings with them? It is clearly a long-standing grudge. That old man must have thought that the four of them wanted to use young Master Mu's connections to get to the inspector's side. In his opinion, young Master Mu could be considered to have made friends with them, but they actually did not know the immensity of the heavens and the immensity of the earth, and wanted to join the side of his young master's enemy. Understanding this, Fan Wu Jie naturally would not give up what is close at hand to seek what is far away, and walk the path of that Prince Bo Jun. Although it was obvious that Prince Bo Jun was a person with real power in the celestial heavens, and young Master Mu here was only noble, and the future under him was far inferior, but Fan Wu Jie and the others were not here to mingle in the celestial heavens officialdom and seek their own destruction. They just wanted to escape the calamity of the celestial heavens' destruction. Therefore, it did not matter who they joined. Fan Wu Jie received the signal from the Shwetu King and the others, and knew that he would be the leader this time. So he immediately said indifferently, "Bo Jun." There are Bo Zhong Ji rankings, and Bo is the head, which has the meaning of big, head, number one. Great Sky is where the Emperor of Heaven is, the head of the 9 heavens that reigns supreme among the 8 heavens. It is the legitimate and supreme position of the celestial heavens. Prince Bo Jun, the head of Great Sky. Does he want to be the Emperor of Heaven? Fan Wu Jie's words were just short of pointing at Prince Bo Jun's nose and scolding him for being a disobedient and rebelling. Not to mention young Master Mu. Even that old servant paled in fright. I do not dare to provoke such an ambitious person. Fan Wu Jie directly expressed his stance. Immediately, young Master Mu's expression became much more sincere, and his expression towards the few of them became even more amiable. He smiled and said, "Now, Emperor Ziyang is assisting Emperor Zhuanshu to establish the rule of Great Sky, and is the first to assist Yin Yang, a person like the Prime Minister of the Celestial Heavens. Prince Bo Jun was born in Great Sky, and when he was born, purple energy filled the sky, making him extremely noble. He is not overstepping his authority by taking the title of the head of Great Sky. After all, Emperor Ziyang can be said to be 2 emperors." As young Master Mu spoke, he suddenly laughed out loud. Fan Wu Jie became more and more certain that there was enmity between the two of them. Then, young Master Mu's attitude of trying to rope them in became even more sincere. The Shwetu King continued, "Other than that cult master Taiping, there are a few people worth paying attention to. For example, that black-robed old man. If you look closely, you will realize that you cannot see his face at all. This kind of divine art seems ordinary, but it is actually very unusual. This person does not exist." Fan Wu Jie looked at the black-robed old man who does not exist, and suddenly felt that he was very familiar. This strange and unpredictable state, no matter how he looked at it, seemed to be the means of the demon sect, and it gave him a similar feeling to the starved ghosts. Young Master Mu's expression was solemn as he said, "Coming and going without a trace, that is the almighty of the demon sect. Often with thousands of people and thousands of faces, he mingles among them. Could it be Old Man, Heart Demon of the Heart Demon Tao?" Young Master Mu saw the confused expressions on the few of them, and then he came to a realization and said, "Oh, the demon sect has always been secretive and not known by the people of the untainted land. My fellow Taoists, I am afraid you do not know its origin." Little Qing leaned on the window and listened excitedly. The demon sect was founded by an almighty expert, Patriarch River Styx, after the untainted land was founded. Patriarch River Styx was born from the Blood Sea, and he was a connate fiend god, born from the tainted blood of Pangu. It was the place where the untainted land's evil aura gathered. Since Patriarch River Styx founded the demon sect, he recruited demons from all over, and there were dozens of demon sects that prospered. Among them was the Heart Demon Tao. The Heart Demon Tao is extremely terrifying, and it is good at destroying the Tao heart. It set up tribulations for the cultivators of the untainted land. When cultivators go through tribulations, they will often attract the demons of the Heart Demon Tao to set up tribulations and destroy the Tao heart. In the 3 calamities and 9 calamities, they have always been there. Usually, 1 or 2 out of 10 cultivators will be destroyed by them. They are extremely terrifying demons. Little Qing exclaimed in a low voice, 3 calamities and 9 calamities, the tribulations set by the Heart Demon. Isn't this your tribulation, sister? I have heard a little about the Heart Demon. The lady in white said solemnly. They're the great enemies of cultivators. They are extremely terrifying, and you must not provoke them. Otherwise, if they take advantage of the tribulation to destroy you, the tribulation will be much more intense. Fan Wu Jia trembled and exclaimed, "Since there is such a terrifying demon, this is the first time I have heard of the demon sect. This is the first time I've heard of the devil sect, and it's truly shocking. The tribulations experienced by cultivators can actually be used by others. Terrifying, terrifying." The Shui Tu King suppressed his shock and said, "We need to be careful of this person. This person cannot be provoked easily. To be famous in the Heart Demon Tao, the Heart Demon Old Man must be very difficult to deal with." Young Master Mu sighed and said, "Difficult is not enough to describe it. Although the Heart Demon Old Man's cultivation is not as good as the sect leader of peace, I would rather meet the sect leader of peace than provoke this Heart Demon Old Man. Why? Although the Heart Demon Old Man has wreaked havoc for a while, it is not enough to make the Heaven Court afraid, right?" Fan Wu Jie asked in confusion. Young Master Mu smiled bitterly and said, "It is not fear, it is indulgence. Do you know how the Yaoba Immortal of the Heaven Court detects the outstanding among all living beings? Although the Heaven Court is strong, it is impossible for them to not have a chance to transcend. Therefore, the Heaven Court has a system to select talents from the primordial world. But how do they select? Of course, it is based on cultivation." Fan Wu Jie said naturally. "If it is based on cultivation, why can't Zhang Jiao be recruited?" Young Master Mu said mockingly. "The Heaven Court has its own system with countless strong cultivators, enough to suppress the world. No matter how high their cultivation is, how deep their cultivation is, what use is it to the Heaven Court? Moreover, this person is arrogant and unruly, and it is difficult for him to adapt to the Heaven Court system. They cultivate from the primordial world, and to become strong, they will definitely gather followers and forces. Where is the law of the heaven? Where is the authority of the Heaven Court? Isn't it all eaten up by them? The Heaven Court and these cultivators with high cultivation is the relationship between the central dynasty and the local tyrants. We can use them, but mainly suppress them. When the Heaven Court rules the world, it naturally needs to put those with virtue, those who have contributed to the world, and promote them to gods to manage the world for the Heaven Court. Therefore, when the Heaven Court selects people, they use merit, not cultivation. The Heaven Court has its own laws and records the merit of all living beings in the world. Those with high merit will naturally be favored by the heavens and become immortals and gods. These people are the bones of the heaven court, and those with powerful cultivations, high attainments, and those who establish their own sex are all unstable factors for the heavenly court's rule. These words had a huge impact on Fan Wujie, who lived in an era where sex ruled the heavens. Young Master Mu continued, since those with high cultivation are the unstable factors in the heaven court's rule, then the tribulations and 9 tribulations and the inner demons that hinder cultivation naturally have their value. Ever since the Emperor of Heaven met Patriarch River Styx, the inner demons, demons, and other demonic cultivators will be restrained by merit. Immortals of merit will not be disturbed by inner demons. Since it does not affect the foundation of the heaven court, then the demonic cultivators will naturally be tolerated by the heaven court. Although the demonic cultivators themselves are great dukes and powerful, the Emperor's Tao is balanced. Using the inner demons to hinder the cultivation of the prehistoric Almighty is also an important weight in the balance. Therefore, Zhang Jiao is a tyrant, suppressed by the heaven court, and trembles in fear, while Old Demon Heart is tolerated by the heaven court and is free and unfettered. Young Master Mu sighed and said, therefore, I advise you not to follow the path of Prince Bo Jun, because I am worried that you will miss the right path of the heaven court and walk the evil path. From now on, you will never be able to get rid of the mark of Emperor Ziyang. The first method of the Emperor of Heaven is the heaven and earth merit method. As long as you are meritorious to the world and virtuous to all living beings, there will naturally be merit to help you become immortals and gods. This is the right path, and the Imperial Examiner is just a small path. Young Master Mu looked like he was confiding in him, but Fan Wujie already knew. Because you don't have the authority. Without the Imperial Examiner quota, you can't buy people, so you can only speak with reason. In other words, if I can't get the authority, you can go and take the exam. You have a great future. The Shuetu King pointed at another person, with horns on his head and an ancient face that did not look ordinary. He said, this person has the bloodline of the dragon race, and is probably a poisonous flood dragon. However, his cultivation is extraordinary, even more so than the ordinary dragon race. Young Master Mu looked carefully and said in shock, could this be Demon King Jiao? He is one of the traitors who rebelled against the heaven court. Why would he dare to come here? Demon King Jiao is said to be of mixed blood from the dragon race of the 4 seas. No one knows which dragon expert left him a romantic debt, but when he was young, he was bullied by the direct descendants of the dragon race. After that, he had a fortuitous encounter, and his future was even brighter than those true dragons. So he rebelled against the Dragon Palace, killed his way out of the 4 seas, gathered his allies, and established an independent territory, declaring himself king. The Dragon Palace is a vassal appointed by the Heaven Court. So how could he offend them? So he accused him of being a traitor, but the Heaven Court allowed the dragon race to have a certain degree of autonomy over the 4 seas, so they did not cross the Dragon Palace to punish him. For some reason, the Dragon Palace still has some feelings for him. So even though he is a traitor, as long as he doesn't cause too much trouble, no one will care about him. Little Qing and the Lady in White were shocked after hearing young Master Mu's explanation of the demon's identity. Little Qing asked in a low voice, Sister, why is Demon King Jiao here? Demon King Jiao's reputation has long been rumored to be a great demon, and he is rumored to be the next great sage, the Lady in White replied. The white-robed lady replied, why would he come to a place like the Sky-Bearing Banquet? In the past few Sky-Bearing Banquets, the people who recommended themselves were not much stronger than me. Why are there so many big shots this time? Sect leader Tai Ping has a reason, but why are Old Man Mental Demon and Demon King Jiao here? Does this have anything to do with my fate? The Lady in White's heart wavered. Maybe they are here to watch the show. Because no one usually points out where they are, we didn't notice them. Little Qing suggested a possibility. The Lady in White sighed. That's the only thing we can think of. These 4 people and that young master are very unusual. I wonder where they are from. The Lady in White didn't know everything. Because she didn't hear some of the conversations, she didn't even know that young Master Mu's name had the word Mu in it. Letting out the news of those powerful beings was to fish. If she revealed young Master Mu's identity, she would be acting as bait for others. Of course, the degree of propriety needed to be considered was different. Next, the Shui-Tu king pointed out a few more people. They were either high monks from the Sand sect, wild deities, ghosts, or even foxes from the Green Hill tribe. The Green Hill tribe was King Yu's wife's tribe and had an extraordinary relationship with the human race. They couldn't be treated as ordinary demons. Chapter 1292. At the end of the 100 barges sailing through the sky, a towering white jade pavilion had risen long ago. The pavilion was situated on the most lofty and precipitous mountain among the mountains. Ships and spirit beasts of all shapes and sizes were constantly gathering from all directions and sailing into the pavilion. Young Master Mu controlled the flying ship and landed on the white jade tower. He smiled. Prince Bo Jun is so generous. He even brought the white jade tower of the celestial heavens. The white jade capital in the sky has 5 cities and 12 towers. This white jade tower is also a flying magical artifact. It is usually used by the celestial heavens to host immortal ascension banquets, to welcome those who have achieved great merits and become immortals and gods. The white jade tower receives the heavenly dew, so it is also known as the Bearing Dew Tower. Over time, it became known as the Bearing Fortune Tower. It means that those who are conferred titles by the celestial heavens will receive endless blessings from heaven and earth. They are immortals who have achieved enlightenment. Young Master Mu smiled. There is a deer cry banquet on the Bearing Fortune Tower. It was originally a place for newly conferred immortals to compete and display their magical powers and merits to compete with the world. At the same time, it is also a place for the emperors of the celestial heavens to test the newly conferred immortals' mastery of the laws of heaven. But now is not the real immortal ascension banquet, and those who come are not virtuous true immortals. They are rogue cultivators and cultivators from the sects and sections. This deer cry banquet will not be like the celestial heavens test of newcomers. It will become a place for Prince Bo Jun to recruit talents and compete. I'm afraid the atmosphere will be foul. Fan Wu Jie's eyes flickered. The sky-bearing banquet gathers heroes from all over the world. With just a quick glance, I can recognize so many powerful cultivators. The celestial heavens has suppressed the sects and sects for a long time. The new strong cultivators will not be willing to be left out. In this way, there will be a fierce battle. The celestial heavens suppressed the world and established order. Fan Wujia was born in the era of the heavens. When he was born, the order of the universe had already been divided among the sects and sects, and the primordial world was broken into relatively independent heavens. Those sects and sects each drew a boundary and dominated a region, ruling over the heavens for a time. Fan Wujia naturally knew what kind of ambitions these sects were hiding. The heaven controlled all the divine rights in the untainted land. The sects could only watch helplessly as the resources and power of the untainted land were controlled by the heaven. They could not enjoy any of it. They were restricted by the heaven and could be punished by the heaven at any time. These local tyrants couldn't control manpower or seize resources. They clearly had the power to occupy resources, but they were suppressed by the order of the heavenly court. Saying that he was unwilling to be left out was already a whitewash from Fan Wujie's words. He should be greedy and ready to take advantage of the situation to stir up trouble at any time. The heavenly courts ruled the world. At the end of the primordial world, it seemed calm, but in fact, under the song and dance of peace, undercurrents were surging and a huge storm was brewing. It was only when he arrived at the desolate era that Fan Wujie realized that this era was completely different from what he had imagined. In the era of heavens, there were very few almighty existences who were excluded from the mainstream of power. As long as they had great divine abilities and great physical strength, they would eventually obtain a corresponding status. Because the era of heavens was a world where the weak were prey to the strong, there was no unified order. Fighting and killing between cultivators was a common thing. Cultivation resources, good things that belonged to others, if they fancied it, they would just snatch it. In Fan Wu Jie's consciousness, this was not something that was disgraceful and unimaginable. What kind of strength was needed to be worthy of what kind of status and resources? Treasure medicines, spirit items, or divine woods. Those who had the strength could take them for themselves. In every world, if there was no absolute power and strength that could suppress the cultivators like the Fan family, it would be a chaotic war between warlords. Every sect was like a small army, cultivating strong cultivators and suppressing the strong cultivators of forces that were not under their control within their own sphere of influence. They built a system that exploited rogue cultivators and plundered resources. The myriad of worlds in the universe were all divided and divided like this. In such an era, those who had great magical power and profound cultivation would naturally have the corresponding power and resources. After they became the strongest martial force and ruler of an area, they would naturally be able to build their own forces, help themselves manage and occupy the corresponding resources, and exercise power. In Fan Wu Jie's understanding, these were all things that should be expected. So he did not understand why those powerful cultivators had to fear the Heaven Court. If the Heaven Court did not keep them, they would go and live freely. This was the order that he remembered. But after coming to this era, he finally understood what kind of order the Heaven Court had established in the era. Only then did he understand that the power and authority that the mighty figures obtained was not something that came naturally, nor was it something that they were born with. In the era when the Heavenly Court ruled over the world, even absolute powerhouses like Zhang Jiao, Old Man Mental Demon, and Demon King Jiao were unable to destroy the order, plunder, and occupy it. Taking a fancy to a spiritual mountain and killing its original owner? It was possible in the universe, but in the great barren continent, without the approval of the Heaven Court, occupying the spirit mountain would immediately be punished by the Milky Way Navy. Fan Wu Jie had seen the Milky Way Navy's giant spaceships. Even the top gold immortals could not withstand a single blow. When the time came, the divine thunder of the giant ships would wreak havoc, and no matter how strong the mountain protection array was, it would still be reduced to ashes. Killing living beings, cultivating evil arts? After the merit system's inspection, a tribulation would descend. Either one would be destroyed by the wrath of heaven, or they would be lucky enough to survive the heavenly punishment. Then they would immediately be targeted by the Heaven Court, who was in charge of exterminating demons. Between heaven and earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, the pure and turbid energy, and even the spiritual energy of the earth veins were all controlled by powerful gods. They were the resources in the spirit mountain, the natural treasured herbs and spiritual materials, rare beasts, and mutated spirit beasts. Occasionally, an individual could harvest them. The Emperor of Heaven relaxed the restrictions on the mountains and opened the spirit mountain secret realm, allowing the cultivators of the world to fish and hunt. But once the sects closed the restrictions and wanted to slaughter the demons and mutated species on a large scale, didn't the mountain godland conferred by the Heaven Court exist? The Heaven Court ruled the primordial world with a set of strict system. The Heaven Court was not a powerful sect, but the spokesperson of the heavenly Tao. The cultivators in the sects would be judged by the netherworld when they died. They had to be examined and approved by the Heaven Court before they could enter the cycle of reincarnation. They would be under the management of the Star Lords and heavenly gods when they were alive. They would be under the control of the mountain godland when they absorbed the spiritual energy of the earth veins. Even the source of fortune was controlled by the system of fate. It could be said that every breath they took was controlled by the gods. The Heavenly Court was a huge, naked government. They had to manage the weather, precipitation, spiritual energy, and filthy energy. They had to manage environmental protection, and they had to manage the development of wastelands. They even had to manage the natural reproduction of living beings, as well as the relationships between people. Even what kind of reincarnation you would be in and what karma you would inherit in the next life will be controlled by a bunch of gods. Under such strict order, how could the sect control their own disciples? How could they have any authority? The cultivation resources of the disciples were approved by the heaven court. The disciples' luck and opportunities were controlled by the heaven court. The disciples' cultivation of the Tao could also be given by the heaven court. The most important thing was that the heaven court could also give them their cultivation. If Brahma Wu Jia were to establish a sect in the primordial wasteland, teach disciples, and be a good sect master, your outstanding disciples would be immortals with virtue, doing good deeds, contributing to the heaven and earth, handsome and talented, and then the heavens would bestow virtue upon them. From then on, their fate would flourish, and as they walked, there would be opportunities bumping into them, and they would be favored by the gods wherever they went. With fate, there would be no lack of fortune. With the help of merit, his cultivation would soar. With the favor of the gods, he would be rich in resources. Then, what was the use of having you as a sect leader? What was the use of having your sect? You wouldn't need to rely on your sect to ascend. In the future, when your cultivation was successful, the heaven court would directly surpass you, and you would be conferred a title by the heaven court with merit. You would have power and benefits. How could you compete? Then, your outstanding disciple would become a member of the heaven court. Other than being happy for him on the surface, what else could you do? Even if there were disciples in the sect who were not convinced by the sect leader, as long as they followed the heavens, there would naturally be merit from the heaven court. With the heaven court system to nurture them. As a sect leader, you would control the system in the sect. What could you do to the primordial world under the management of the heaven court? If you couldn't even control the rewards and punishments of the sect, what was the point of being a sect leader? All the resources of the primordial world were in the hands of the heaven court. If you were an outstanding immortal who matched the views of the heaven court, the sect would be grateful to you for nurturing you. However, the resources to nurture you were given by the heaven court. Your future were also given by the heaven court. Even your future progress was in the hands of the heaven court. As for your teachers and seniors, they would only use your power to secretly take advantage of the heaven court and steal from the primordial world. They would not be of help and would even harm your future. In the long run, where would you go? Brahma Wu Jia put himself in their shoes and felt that it was unacceptable. Under such circumstances, the immortals who met the needs of the heaven court and were being nurtured had long been included into the system of the heaven court by the merit system. They had become their own people who had to protect the authority of the heaven court for their own interests. They had become part of the system that gave them power. Those cultivators who did not have merit that the heaven court did not think highly of would not only face many hardships on the path of cultivation, but they would also be suppressed in terms of resources. They could not afford to offend anyone in the system of the heaven court. The heaven court was waiting for them to attack those immortals and the petty officials under the heaven court. Then they would violently eliminate them, the unstable factors, outside the system of the heaven court. The immortals of the heaven court would not die of old age. There were so many new immortals recruited every year. The management and rule of the primordial world would only become stricter and stronger. The space outside the system of the heaven court would become smaller and smaller. How could they not feel aggrieved? Although there were many golden immortals and Taoists, there were many Dara supporting them. However, in a state of disunity, the heaven court could exterminate and kill them if it wanted to. A mere golden immortal, or Dara, was nothing in the face of the absolute power of the heaven court. In the primordial world, the mighty figures might have manipulated everything at the top, and those under Dara were like ants. However, in terms of the overall order, it was not a world where one could do whatever they wanted with powerful dharmic powers. For Taoists and golden immortals to be respected and do whatever they wanted in the age of heavens was just an illusory dream. A heaven immortal with a tiny immortal dared to order a golden immortal Taoist around and openly control them. It was really not surprising in the primordial world. Fan Wu Jia, Yuan Yu, Shui Tu, and the others had keenly sensed that a violent revolution was brewing. Those powerful beings who were excluded from the power of the prehistorical universe by the heaven would not be willing to let such an order continue to exist forever. Even those powerful beings who stood at the top of the universe who were truly the ancestors, would not let the rule of the heaven rule over the entire timeline. The powerful figures outside the system of the heaven court were surging in the dark, trying to establish the hierarchy of the strong and the weak. The heaven court was blurring the hierarchy, trying to reestablish the hierarchy of immortals, using the rank of power and merit of the heaven court to determine the ranks of immortals. Heaven immortals were the nobles of the heaven court with the highest status. They were divided into 9 ranks. A heaven immortal was a mighty figure at the level of the Lord God. There were also immortals who were the officials of governance, also divided into 9 ranks. There are also ghost immortals and human immortals. Ghost immortals were the immortals of the netherworld, and human immortals were the officials of the heaven court outside of the divine power. The earth spirit was the immortals of the mystic door, the Buddhist sect, the demon sect, and the other great sects that the heaven court could not ignore, such as chieftains and immortals of Jinji. Finally, there were the itinerant immortals with the lowest status. They were those who were not conferred by the heaven court, but were included in the system of merit and were obedient to the rule of the heaven court. As for those who were not obedient to the heaven, they had no merit and were the hidden dangers of the local sections. In the eyes of the heaven court, they were all hidden dangers in the future and had no place in the system planned by the heaven court. They were not included in the hierarchy of the heaven court. As for the anti-heaven forces outside of the heaven court, they focused on the current hierarchy based on dermic powers and divine powers, which was itinerant immortals, heaven immortals, true immortals, mystic immortals, and golden immortals. Above the golden immortals, there is also the primordial unity loose number, primordial unity true number, primordial unity dark number, primordial unity metal number, and so on. The primordial unity loose number was when the golden immortal Tao Lord began to sense Dara. After passing through the novice exploration period, they would go one step further on the mature foundation of the golden immortal realm, and sense the level of Dara realm. The primordial unity true number was when the golden immortal Tao Lord reverted to his connate body and became a connate life form. The primordial unity dark number had the characteristics of Dara, and its power would never fade. The primordial unity metal number had the indestructible nature of metal. As long as it was not erased from its roots, and the traces of its birth were completely erased, it would be immortal and indestructible. It could trace its existence back to its origins, and could grasp the timeline it covered. Apart from Dara and connate spiritual treasures, no primordial unity golden immortals could be killed. The anti-heaven forces and the local tyrants hoped to establish a standard and perfect hierarchy. The strong would have the right to deal with the weak, and establish an order where the strong were respected and the weak were humble. That was why they thought of ways to establish a realm system to divide the levels of immortals. Once such a realm system was established, the order they wanted would naturally have room to grow. For example, if the primordial unity loose number was recognized by the realms of true, dark, and metal, then Fan Wu Jie and the others would be primordial unity mystic immortals who had attained the primordial unity dark number. The other Tao lords who had not attained the primordial unity Tao fruit, as well as the loose number and true number, would naturally be inferior to them. Just based on the realm, Fan Wu Jie could overwhelm most of the Tao lords. When the Tao lords interacted with each other, an invisible order of authority would be established. But if such a realm system was not recognized, then when Fan Wu Jie faced other Tao lords, everyone would be a golden immortal Tao lord. Who are you? Why are you a head higher than me? Why should I listen to you? Attack? The heavenly court is in charge. Why don't you try? When the time comes, karma will be sown. When your tribulation comes, I and a group of Tao lords will deal with you while the heavenly court restrains most of your strength. Are you afraid? Therefore, although the primordial unity realm system existed, the heavenly court had long decreed that primordial unity was a heresy. Those who dare to discuss it would have their karmic luck reduced. Those who dare to establish primordial unity Tao fruit would be punished by the heavens. They had used their supreme authority to remove the primordial unity Tao fruit that had been brewing in the primordial world. Fan Wu Jie finally understood the crux of the system the heavenly court used to govern the primordial world. As a Tao Lord of the Age of Heavens, he naturally did not have a good impression of the heavenly court's rule. In the Age of Heavens, Tao Lords had extremely high statuses, and their lives were taken. But in the primordial world, if a Tao Lord did not enter the system, he would be a wanderer. He would either bow his head and obey, or wander the world. Even if Fan Wu Jie had a good impression of the heavenly court, he knew which side he was sitting on. But now, he was thinking about something else. Fan Wu Jie looked at the Milky Way Navy fleet that was leisurely surrounding the white jade platform. Prince Bo Jun's chariot was pulled by 9 dragons, and each of them was a pure-blooded true dragon. From the looks of it, their might was not inferior to that of Fan Wu Jie and the others, and they were also innate stage beings. In other words, 9 Tai true dragons were being pulled by a prince of the celestial court. Among the Tao Lords and primordial unity present, who would not be afraid of the heavenly court's power, no matter how high their cultivation was or how strong their magic power was, they could not compare to a divine beast pulling a carriage from the heavenly court. If that's the case, no wonder. Fan Wu Jie was speechless. What he wanted to say was, no wonder the heavenly court collapsed. As long as the heavenly court was in power, the Tao Lords of the primordial world could not stand out. The mystic door, the Buddhist sect, and the demon sect were suppressed. Although the heavenly court was strong, the primordial world had Tao Lords, and even primordial unity that was not recognized by the heavenly court. These cultivators and almighty figures would always rise. The more the heavenly court suppressed them, the stronger the resistance they accumulated in the dark. In the end, once the heavenly court became unstable, the experts who were suppressed by its order would erupt like a volcano. Who could stop them? It was no wonder that once the heavenly court was overthrown, it would be difficult to rebuild it. Fan Wu Jie, Shui Tu, and the others secretly exchanged glances. Their eyes flashed as they watched Prince Bo Jun drive the chariot of 9 dragons, dragging the incomparably majestic and magnificent carriage, and land on the main seat of the white jade platform. A young man in luxurious clothes sat in the carriage. There were profound beads that were as large as the moon. In Fan Wu Jie's era, these profound beads could be used as the moon star in the heavens to conceal his true appearance. Prince Bo Jun lifted the curtain of beads woven from the profound beads and took a step forward. Fan Wu Jie was shocked. This man was definitely the most talented cultivator he had ever seen in this life. In fact, he could even be considered a perfect cultivator. He was not Dara, but he was a perfect Tao monarch. His great Tao was completely flawless. His entire person, including his body, magic power, and primordial spirit, had no flaws at all. He was like a high and mighty, perfect god. No wonder young Master Mu doesn't have a good relationship with him. Fan Wu Jie thought, this man is too perfect. So perfect that it's like he's fake. He can't blend into this world at all, and no one can stand side by side with him. It's as if we are all imperfections in front of him, and we can only lower our heads to him. He's like the kind of existence that everyone has to lower their heads to. In front of those whose status is lower than his, he is the perfect leader. But if you want to be equal to him, you will be suppressed. Shui Tu King lowered his voice and said, I want to know, is he like this in front of his father? Fan Wu Jie and the others imagined how Prince Bo Jun would look like when he stood in front of Celestial Emperor Ziyang, and they found that the feeling was ridiculous. When they looked at Prince Bo Jun again, they felt that he was fake and empty. Just for show, Fan Wu Jie said to Yuan Yu and the others with subtle malice. This was because Fan Wu Jie had visualized the scene of demon ancestor Luo destroying the world in his mind. He had placed the perfect and high and mighty Prince Bo Jun in the moment of the universe's destruction. But in the end, he was like a soap bubble that would burst with a poke. Facing the shadow of Luo's destruction, not only was he no longer perfect, he was also somewhat comical and laughable. He looks good, but he can't stand up to comparison. He's like a mold made of wax. Although my senior brother has the attitude of a villain, he's still more real than him. He looks like a character, like a god high above, but once he's asked to bear responsibility, to worship him, to use his magic, he's seen through. It doesn't work anymore. Yuan Yu shook his head and said, "At first glance, it still looks like that. But when you take a closer look, if the Prince of the Celestial Heavens is only this kind of character, I think he's not even as good as the 9 dragons that pull the carriage." Young Master Mu looked at the overbearing Prince Bo Jun and let out a deep breath. He suppressed his emotions, and his face was indifferent. Fan Wujie and the others saw it. This hatred was not shallow. Chapter 1293. Fan Wujie's eyes flickered as he stared at the handsome crowned Prince Bo Jun, who stood on the white jade dais like a calm, bottomless pool. Suddenly, he turned his head and asked young Master Mu, "So, which monarch of the heaven came up with the idea of inspecting the talents of the primordial wilderness and making sure that no one is left behind?" Young Master Mu was slightly stunned, and then said, "It was Dong Wangkung's idea." "What do you mean, fellow Taoist Wujie?" Fan Wujie chuckled and said, "Nothing, I just think it's a good idea to recruit the talents of the untainted wilderness and make all the heroes of the world fall into the hands of the heaven. This is a wonderful way to select talents and maintain the rule." Fan Wujie changed the topic, but Yuan Yu transmitted his voice among the 4 of them. "It seems that there was a problem in the heaven first. The Emperor of Heaven established the foundation of the heaven with the merit law. Although it has the hidden danger of encouraging the anti-heaven forces and repelling the local tyrants, it also ensured the centralization of power and unity of thinking in the heaven. Tung Wang Kung absorbed dissidents and brought the local forces under the rule of the heavenly court. Although it seemed to expand the foundation of the heavenly court's rule and stabilize it, in fact, it changed the foundation of the heavenly court's rule and inevitably caused chaos within the heavenly court's internal thinking." Shui Tu King added lightly, "Presumably, during the time when the Emperor of Heaven ruled the world, there would be no such thing as this in the sky-bearing festival, where the local tyrants were inspected through the battle of powers." Ajadi also said the inspection system and a merit law are fundamentally in conflict. The Emperor of Heaven used the merit law to take over the divine power of the world. It was a move to establish the law of heaven and weaken the power of the local tyrants. The merit law is essentially the embodiment of the heaven's ruling will. It is the ruling order that those who obey will prosper, and those who defy will die. It promotes the heavenly officials who conform to the heaven's rule and stabilizes the foundation of the rule. The merit law is to let the cultivators of the untainted wilderness carry out the will of the Emperor of Heaven, to use the benefits that the Emperor of Heaven advocated as merit, and to use the ethics that the Emperor of Heaven loved as virtue, to bring the cultivators into the order of the heaven, and use the order of the merit law to eliminate all rebellious subjects. The inspecting law advocated by Tung Wangkung is a hidden danger for the aristocratic families, the Shui Tu King replied coldly. The chastising law refers to the almighty experts who are not under the rule of the heavens. They connect the isolated local tyrants with the heavens imperial emperors. The local tyrants have no influence in the heavens, and the imperial emperors assigned by the heavens can't take root there. One is isolated, and the other has to rely on the authority of the heavens to do things. It's just like the local tyrants who have no one in the central government and the central officials who have no power in the local government. They can't and won't destroy the order of the heavenly court. Now that the imperial inquisition law is out, the heavenly court's emperors have grasped the way to weave their own wings through the patrol envoys. With the collusion between the two sides, the heavenly court's emperors have the power to break away from the heavenly court. This will allow the local tyrants to have a way to corrode the heavenly court's control of the local influence. Originally, a great sect like the Tao of Peace has no influence in the heavens. A mountain god can control its development. However, if they collude with the heavenly court's emperors, they can replace the gods in charge of the local management of the heavens with their own people. At that time, the mountain god and the land will belong to the Tao of Peace. They can use the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, and other resources to develop and strengthen themselves. They will have a foundation in the local government, and it will become a weakness for the heavenly court's emperors to meddle in the local affairs. Originally, if the heavenly court's emperors want to show their authority, they can only use the power within the heavens and follow the rules of the heavens. Only then can they mobilize people to do things for them. Whether it's to suppress certain disobedience or to obtain certain resources, they need to go through a complete set of procedures and official documents. They will also be recorded and filed in the heavens. It's very inconvenient to use public authority to do things for private interests. Now that they have passed the imperial examinations and gained influence in the local government, they can make the local tyrants do things for them with just a single order. The original centralized power and ruling order of the heavens have been silently destroyed by the imperial examinations. The heavenly court's emperors have all recruited tyrants to destroy the system of the heavens and set up their own factions. In the end, the centralized power of the heavens was broken, and the power of the heavens was divided and established by the heavenly court's emperors. The power of the heavens was divided and feuded by the heavenly court's emperors. Gradually, the heavens became warlords and factions. The central authority of the heavens is gone. The imperial examinations are a great threat to the heavens. The Shuetu king suddenly laughed coldly. The imperial examinations were passed by the central authority of the heavens and became a system. It's definitely not a problem of one or two heavenly court's emperors. Instead, it's because the heavens is divided and shaken. After the emperor of heaven handed over the power, it seems like the heavenly court's emperors are not willing to be left out. That's why they came up with such a system to make it easier for them to recruit their henchmen. The foundation of the anti-heaven is in the local areas, but the brains of the anti-heaven are in the heavens. Fanwu Jie said confidently. On the white jade platform, there were countless pleasure boats docked below the platform under the guidance of the celestial girls. While the few of them were talking, Prince Bojun had already gotten off the carriage and sat on the main seat. The celestial girls were dancing gracefully in the pavilions beside the white jade platform. Their movements were beautiful and graceful, accompanied by heavenly flowers and auspicious clouds. Their voices were beautiful and melodious as they danced in the air. Their dresses fluttered in the wind, and their feet stepped on the air to the accompaniment of music and the beating of drums. Yuan stared at the celestial girls as they moved their delicate hands and used their seductive techniques to move the void. At the same time, their vital energy took the form of countless heavenly flowers, indescribable melodies, and even auspicious gods like the phoenixes and the spirits of heaven and earth like the white deer. The vital energy in the void was touched by the celestial girls' dance and hands, transforming into all kinds of illusionary images. Fan Wujie saw that Yuan was staring at the celestial girls, and he wanted to tease him for his eagerness. But when he noticed Yuan's pale expression, Fan Wujie was shocked and asked, "Why do you look so scared, senior brother?" Yuan said in a trembling voice, "These celestial girls are celestial girls Ling Miao, who are close to the peak of seduction techniques. You might not think much of celestial girls Ling Miao. What if I say that if celestial girl Ling Miao becomes a devil, she will become a heavenly enchantress whose senses can reach the level of a heavenly devil metamorphosis? A heavenly devil metamorphosis can demonize an entire world with a single dance. How bad can celestial girl Ling Miao be? Don't be fooled by the divine beasts, melodies, and heavenly flowers that these celestial girls can transform into. But if they can transform into wind, thunder, water, and fire, they can still burn the sky and boil the sea." Fan Wujie looked at the few Miao Xiang celestial maidens who were like playthings and props. Perhaps it was because of the stereotype that he had. Forgive him for not being able to tell just how frighteningly destructive these young ladies who were there to warm up the crowd before the battle. Yuan, on the other hand, felt like he couldn't stand still. In Yuan's eyes, this was not a dance to entertain others. These were dozens of living heavenly tribulations, and the ruin of divine thunder was jumping around on the stage. In the heavens' punishment of the unorthodox path, there is a dance of celestial girls, where the melodies of heavenly flowers transform into the demonic sound of heavenly fire. In the past, there was a celestial girl from the Gongsun family, whose dance shook the world. The audience was depressed like the mountains, and the heaven and earth were depressed because of it. They were like shooting down the 9 suns, like a group of emperors soaring like dragons. They came like thunder, retracted with fury, and left like the clear light of the sea. The rumbling demonic sound seizes the soul. The heaven and earth are depressed, and under the surging vital energy, the heavenly light is like an arrow, and shoots down the 9 suns. The clear light of the stars condensed like the ocean, and lightning surged as it moved. Even the evil devil overlords would either be condensed into solar true fire arrows by the heavenly maiden and burned to death under her dance that could burn the sky and boil the sea, or be burned to death by the heavenly fire, or be possessed by the demonic sound and possessed by the heart devil, or be crushed by the heavenly river of the stars. Yuan Yu wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and said, "Trust me. After being undercover in the beauty sect for so many years, I am a professional in this field. If these celestial girls work together, they can kill at least half of the people here." Fan Wu Jie didn't know what expression to show, and he said in shock, "Is the heavens so powerful? A few celestial girls can wipe out this place?" Yuan Yu said in a low voice, "Anyway, I've only seen one heavenly lady of this level among the goddess sect's devil sect's direct descendants." Fan Wu Jie said, "Even if they are not to be trifled with, you don't have to be so scared. I have never seen you so scared in front of those Dara." Yuan Yu wiped the sweat off his forehead and said, "Young man, you are still young. You don't understand. Women are scarier than Dara. Dara is reasonable with you, but celestial girls don't need to be reasonable." Fan Wu Jie pretended to ask young Master Mu casually, "Your Highness is an important person in the heaven, and these celestial girls dance beautifully. Your Highness is blessed in the heaven. You can admire them from time to time." Young Master Mu said with a strange expression, "Brother, you are wrong. Although the celestial girls entertain the people with their beauty and are not gods with real power, they're still celestial beings with ranks. They are conferred titles and are gods with a background. The celestial girls all belong to the heaven, and they are ranked above the Music Transformation Palace, one of the 36 celestial palaces. Their job is to entertain the people with singing and dancing, and they are the etiquette officers of the heaven. There are 3 jobs for celestial goddesses. The first is to be the etiquette officers of the gods. When the gods go on patrol or preach, they will use the celestial goddesses to show the authority and peace of the heaven. The second is to harmonize the heaven and earth, to give rise to auspicious energy. When the celestial girls dance, they will calm the evil energy, suppress the demons, and give rise to auspicious energy. The third is to entertain the people, to transform into freedom and to entertain the people. Therefore, although the celestial girls do not have a high rank, they are still celestial beings that cannot be humiliated. So, on the surface, they are inconspicuous etiquette officers, but in reality, they are the killing weapons of the heaven, the hidden army. Fan Wu Jie's eyes narrowed, feeling that this was a powerful move. Everyone had a stereotype, thinking that they were servants who entertained the people with their beauty. They looked inconspicuous, and no one would be able to guard against the celestial goddesses who sang and danced. Even when they went on patrol with the gods of the heaven, they thought it was just a part of the show. In reality, they were extremely powerful, the hidden fighting power of the heaven, and their weapons of mass destruction. They looked inconspicuous on the surface, but the crucial moment, they could amaze the world. Who would have guessed that the female troupe of the Heaven's sympathy performance would be a ceremonial show, and that they could turn hostile and kill at any time? At this time, Fan Wu Jie looked at the ladies on the white jade stage with a strange expression. Could this be a trap? Using the Milky Way Navy as a pretense, the celestial goddesses sent by the heaven were actually lying in ambush at the sky-bearing festival, waiting for someone to act rashly and then suppress them. Killing the chicken to scare the monkey? Chapter 1294. While the fairies were dancing, 2 rows of tables were arranged under the pavilion in the center of the white jade stage. Prince Bo-jun sat at the head seat, and the captains of the Milky Way Navy of the celestial heavens sat at the second seat. There were also many important people with extraordinary looks sitting in order. Zhang Jiao, the cult master of the Tao of Peace, whom Fan Wu-jie and the others had met earlier, was among them. These important people drank and chatted merrily, enjoying the beautiful dance on the platform. It was a scene of singing and dancing to celebrate peace. Prince Bo-jun drank 3 times before ordering people to stop the dance, and said, "Since Emperor Zhuanqu's reform, East King has made a trend. The Heaven Court has abolished the old rules, visited the virtuous people everywhere, and made the people of the world be of one mind, seeking the same thing, and rejoicing in the sea. East King Duke abolished the tyranny of the Heaven Court to punish the demons, and showed the people of the world to be equal. Since the Emperor of Heaven chased away the Demon Emperor and established the Heaven Court, although there were merit laws to govern the world and promote the obedience of the gods everywhere, there were still virtuous people in the wild. The mighty people could not be used, and there was resentment in the primitive world. At that time, those who spoke said that the world was peaceful and ruled, but East King Duke did not think so. He wrote to the Emperor of Heaven, "Those who are peaceful and ruled are either stupid or flattering. A man hugs the firewood of a house and sleeps on it. The fire has not been lit, and that is peace." Why is the situation different now? At that time, the 4 sides were restless, and the demon race was restless. Emperor Ziyang said, "Why did the Emperor of Heaven honor the human race and demote the demon race, and serve one race? Please be equal to the people of all races." The Emperor of Heaven did not allow it. So he demoted East King Duke to the East Sea and banished him to the Zifu continent. The virtuous people who did not serve the Heaven Court called themselves wild immortals, and they floated on the sea with East King Duke, gathering between the 3 islands and 10 continents. Therefore, the demon race did not submit, and smoke rose everywhere. The Heaven Court was disrespectful to the virtuous people of the various sects, and the Heaven Army was exhausted from chasing the demons and suppressing the demons. When the Emperor Heaven heard that there were loose immortals in the Eastern Sea, he served the Duke of the East and forgot about the Heaven. So he ordered the deity Ao to carry the mountain, demoted the Duke of the East to Fusang, and exiled all the virtuous men to the 5 divine mountains and immortal islands. He actually caused the people of Longbow Kingdom to fish for Ao and destroy the mountain, sinking Daiyu and Yuanjiao into the ruins. After that, the Emperor of Heaven converged with the Tao, and Zhuanqiu reformed the world. Only then did he invite the Duke of the East to return to the throne. Tung Wang Kung has brought happiness to all living beings, and with the addition of the wise and virtuous almighty beings, there is no revolution. The people know of the Emperor's virtue. The demon race is respectful. The 4 wastelands are literate. The mortals are simple, and there is no war. Once the great number is obtained, the world will be governed in peace. The internal energy of the sea will be clear and salty. The Duke of the East and the heavenly court will call him Emperor Ming. The living beings will call him God Ming. The beauty of his reputation will be endless. Celestial Emperor Ziyang has recruited the Demon King Great Sage, seeking virtuous almighty beings from all over the world. He will appease all races, abolish the harsh laws, establish the heavenly court, rule by virtue and not by law. He will reconcile with all races, show mercy to the demons and barbarians in the 4 wastelands, and use the law to make the world harmonious. All living beings will be happy. The world will be respectful, and the demons and barbarians will be respectful. Let's drink this cup to congratulate the Duke of the East and Celestial Emperor Ziyang. All the almighty beings present raised their cups together, and even the many demons and itinerant cultivators below the white jade platform raised their cups excitedly and said in unison, "To the Duke of the East and Celestial Emperor Ziyang, to the heavenly court, to Prince Bo-jun, The woman in white on the pleasure boat held little Qing's hand and watched the ceremony from below the white jade platform. Seeing such a grand scene, she couldn't help but reveal a happy expression. The Emperor of Heaven is a lowly demon and a noble person. It is said that when the Emperor of Heaven ruled the world, he was extremely harsh to the demon race. At that time, if the demon race wanted to gain spiritual intelligence, they would be punished by the heavenly thunder, and it would be more difficult for them to cultivate. Without a human body, it would be difficult for them to breathe spiritual qi. Even if they walked around, they would be supervised by the mountain gods and the four seasons gods. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth, the essence of the sun and the moon, did not belong to the demon race. He often sent heavenly soldiers and generals to attack the demon race, killing countless of them. Now, we can breathe the essence of the sun and the moon, and even have the essence of the moon to help newborn demon spirits gain intelligence. This is all thanks to the generosity of the Duke of the East. During the time of the Emperor of Heaven, the demon race of the untainted land was in a difficult situation. Those who were not born with a strong foundation, and even demigod beasts could not cultivate. Most of the demon spirits could only rely on their instincts and follow their bloodline to grow, but they did not cultivate. At that time, there were only 100 demons with spiritual intelligence in the world. Since the Duke of the East publicized the demon prohibition, our race has prospered. Little Qing smiled and echoed, "That's right. Sister, if not for the Duke of the East treating us equally, how would we dare to live in the world now? We wouldn't be hiding in some desolate mountain without gods, quietly breathing in vitality, stealing the essence of the sun and the moon to cultivate, and being a pair of wild girls. We could only cultivate merit hard, hoping to enter the heavenly register and get rid of the demon body." The woman in white said, "Even if the laws of the heavenly court are generous, we can't forget to accumulate merit. Only with the protection of merit can we get rid of the demon body and achieve enlightenment. This is the teaching of the goddess of Mount Li. We can't forget it. This Prince Bo-jun is very extraordinary. He is handsome, and his cultivation is extremely powerful." Little Qing laughed softly and said, "Prince Bo-jun's realm is very perfect. It is said that he is preparing to perfect the cultivation realm of the untainted land and open up the Tai Dao fruit. Only with such a perfect realm can he achieve what ordinary people can't, and open up the Dao fruit above the Dao monarch and golden immortal." Fan Wujie, Yuan Yu, and the others were not surprised by Prince Bo-jun's words. They could vaguely see that the heavenly court had been divided. The laws and regulations set by the Emperor Heaven had been destroyed by the reformist party under the pretext of reform. The order and net of law that the heavenly court painstakingly built had a loophole, allowing the suppressed local tyrants to take advantage of it. Although the reformist party also wanted to loosen their control over the local tyrants, create a more relaxed atmosphere, and ease the conflicts, the long-suppressed volcano suddenly lost its pressure. However, the volcano that had been suppressed for a long time suddenly lost its pressure. It was hard to predict whether it would erupt or slowly leak the pressure to calm the internal conflicts. It was completely unpredictable whether the reformist party could control the ghosts, demons, devils, ghosts, mighty figures, itinerant immortals, and great demons that were not included in the heavenly court system. Because the heavenly court's sudden destruction interrupted the process of reform, even Fan Wujie and the others, who came from the lower reaches of history, could not see clearly. That Prince Bo-jun pointed a finger, and a rainbow bridge rose from the white jade platform, extending to the bottom of the platform. It crossed over countless flying boats and pleasure boats, spreading out a golden rainbow bridge and a path paved with heavenly flowers. Prince Bo-jun smiled and said, "I have been ordered by the heavenly court to inspect the virtuous people of the world. The capable will be promoted, and the mediocre will be relegated. If you are an outstanding talent, please step onto this bridge and display your divine abilities to convince the immortals present. As long as you can convince the masses, I will promote your background. If you're also not convinced of the arena master on the platform, you can also step forward and challenge him." Fan Wu-jie could not help but feel a little surprised. How could there be any true experts and almighties who would step onto the stage to fight in such a way? Wouldn't that be losing face? Young Master Mu smiled and said, "Brother, do you think that this arena was set up for famous figures like Zhang Jiao of the Taoist sect of peace and the great demon Fox King? How could they, as influential tyrants, go up just like that? The arena is only for those itinerant cultivators who have no background and the rising stars of the great sects to show their faces." As expected, a middle-aged Taoist soon stepped onto the golden bridge and stepped onto the white jade platform. "He is indeed young and handsome," Prince Bo Jun praised. "This is..." Fan Wu-jie keenly sensed that the aura of this person's magic power and primordial spirit were exactly the same as Zhang Jiao's. Even their appearances were somewhat similar. He frowned and said, "This person cultivates the scripture of peace and has also attained the golden immortal Dao Lord realm. Although he looks young, he must be quite old to be able to become a Dao Lord. How can he be called young and handsome with such a big beard?" "Why not?" Young Master Mu said, "This is Zhang Liang of the Taoist sect of peace, the younger brother of sect master Zhang Jiao. Zhang Jiao accepted him as a disciple on behalf of his master, so he is considered his junior brother. Although Zhang Liang has cultivated for tens of thousands of years among the Dao Lords, he can still be called young and handsome for having such a cultivation base at such a young age. Immortals are young and handsome, and Dao Lords are young and handsome. If we only count by lifespan, many primordial mutants need dozens of yuanwees to reach adulthood. Tens of thousands of years of lifespan is just a baby. Do you think we can bully the weak?" Fan Wujia muttered. "If we count by the lifespan of a Dao Lord, who isn't a baby?" The Shui-Tu King also smiled and said, "If we count it like that, fourth brother, you are still drinking milk." "It's young Master Zhang Liang of the Taoist sect of peace. Young Master Zhang is the blood brother of sect Master Zhang Jiao. Zhang Jiao accepted him as a disciple on behalf of his master and taught him the scripture of peace. In just tens of thousands of years, he is cultivated to the level of a Dao Lord. The scripture of peace is mysterious and unpredictable. I wonder how much of its essence Zhang Liang has obtained. It is said that Zhang Jiao divided the scripture of peace into 3 scriptures: heaven, earth, and man. As long as one of them is cultivated, he will be invincible in this arena. The various immortals in the sky-bearing assembly came from all over. Although the Taoist sect of peace was also a powerful force, the primordial world was so vast that the exchange of information was inevitably lagging behind. Therefore, most of the people present really did not recognize the middle-aged Taoist on the arena. Just when they were confused, someone explained loudly. Immediately, they gathered around the person who explained. They even whispered Zhang Liang's identity and background to the left and right. Soon, the crowd was in an uproar. There was even an immortal who seemed to have come from the area near the Path of Peace. He added softly, "I recognize him. He is really Zhang Liang." Legend has it that the Zhang family has 3 heroes: Zhang Jiao, Zhang Liang, and Zhang Bao. They are known as the dragon, tiger, and dog of the Zhang family. Zhang Jiao is the dragon of the Zhang family. Zhang Liang is the tiger of the Zhang family. And Zhang Bao is the dog of the Zhang family. The 3 of them came from the branch of the Zhang family. Later, they were ostracized by the direct descendants of the Zhang family. In a rage, Zhang Jiao went out to establish his own sect. Together with immortals Wisi and Yuji, they studied the Nanhua scripture left behind by the Nanhua, enlightened, and achieved great Tao. After the 3 friends of Nanhua went their separate ways, Zhang Jiao dragged his 2 younger brothers to establish the Path of Peace. The 3 friends of Nanhua are famous, and the Zhang family is also a big aristocratic family. This Zhang Liang was taught by Zhang Jiao carefully and was already a genius when he was young. Now that he has won the first prize in front of the Heavenly Court's inspector, he will definitely have a bright future. Ajadi, who was mixed in the crowd, looked like he was very familiar with the 3 friends of Zhang Jiao and his brothers as he muttered to his left and right. Meanwhile, Yuan Yu, who was surrounded by the idol immortals, continued to pretend to be amazed, and said, Zhang Liang has inherited the true teachings of the path of peace. I wonder how many of the 3 books of heaven, earth, and man he has cultivated. Even if he has only cultivated the human book, no one can stop him. Fan Wu Jie also quietly scuttled into the crowd and said with an indignant expression, What kind of reputation does that Zhang Liang have? We have never heard of him. There are countless heroes here, so how can they say that he is invincible? When he started to make a ruckus, someone immediately said with dissatisfaction, That's right. That's right. Who does he think he is? How can he be compared to the young expert of the Wang family? Wang Hao. I Wang Chun am not convinced. Hee. Yuan Yu chimed in and said, The sect leader of the Path of Peace is on the white jade platform, sitting on the left side of Prince Bojun. He is the 3rd seat. The arena is a place for the young experts to compete with each other. If the older experts go up and challenge him, won't they think that they are inferior to the sect leader of the Path of Peace? The sect leader of the Path of Peace has only cultivated for 90,000 years. He is young and handsome, but because he is too strong, no one has considered him as one of the younger generation. How could the great experts of the same generation as Zhang Jiao bully his younger brother in front of Zhang Jiao? If they had the ability to do so, why not just challenge Zhang Jiao directly? And in the generation below Zhang Jiao, in the generation that has cultivated for nearly 50,000 years, how many of them can prove their Dao and become Dao monarchs? So, Zhang Liang is definitely unparalleled in the arena. The few of them echoed each other, not only revealing Zhang Liang's background, but also silently stirring up the emotions of the crowd. Young Master Mu watched from the side, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He secretly sent a voice transmission to Fan Wu Jie, fellow Taoist Wu Jie. What are you guys doing? Fan Wu Jie replied in a low voice transmission. Brother Mu, that Zhang Jiao must have gone to Prince Bojun's side. This Zhang Liang's appearance is probably a show to make it easier for Prince Bojun to promote him. Their calculations are good. Why don't we play a trick on them and raise the sedan chair up there? There will definitely be people who want to step on Zhang Liang to become famous. If someone stands up for him, Brother Mu can use this opportunity to embarrass Prince Bojun. Young Master Mu was dumbfounded. How could they play like this? He was secretly excited. Brother Wu Jie, do you want me to slap Prince Bojun's face? He said anxiously. Bojun is already very arrogant and annoying. If I can slap his face, that will be great. It will also help me vent my anger. But Wu Jie, you made Zhang Liang sound so powerful. If no one really wants to challenge him, what should we do? Won't he become famous for nothing? Don't worry, young master. Zhang Jiao is powerful, but Zhang Liang is just a second-rate trash who relies on his brother. Although the peace scripture he cultivates is profound and the paths, skills, and divine arts recorded in it are definitely powerful, it can only barely raise him to first-rate. There are many hidden dragons and crouching tigers in the primordial world. It will be very easy to deal with him. If there is no other way, I will do it myself. I have only cultivated for 30,000 years. I am still very young. If I go up and slap his face, no one will be able to say no. Fan Wu Jie encouraged. Wasn't that right? Fan Wu Jie was not only very young, he was simply too young. He was not even an egg. He was not even born yet. In a situation where he was not born yet, even if he hit a baby, it would not be considered as bullying the weak. Young Master Mu was excited and nervous. He felt like he had done something bad. He secretly transmitted his voice. Then, as Brother Wu Jie said, I will embarrass Bojun. I want him to have no face to return to the celestial heavens. Brother Wu Jie, don't worry about Bojun's face. If anything happens, I will take care of it. As long as you don't break the laws of the celestial heavens, I can handle the situation. Shui Tu silently came to Fan Wu Jie and said in a low voice, The laws of the celestial heavens are indeed powerful. We definitely can't get out of the merit law. Let's not talk about whether we can get the recognition of merit from the future to this era. Even if we can, we don't have the time. If we want to return to the Chaos Sea and escape this era, we can only make use of the Bell of Chaos or find the help of the 4 immortal slaying swords. When the bell of chaos rings, it will be the time when the demon court invades. If we wait until then to escape, we will probably not even have bones left on that battlefield. So we have to find Imperial Emperor Ziyang. He must be related to spiritual master Ziyang, and he must have a way to receive the future body on the Chaos Sea. Heaven and man are separated, and under the laws, it is too difficult to sneak into the celestial heavens. Fortunately, the Imperial Emperor of the celestial heavens destroyed the laws of the merit law and left a loophole for us to sneak in. If we want to sneak into the celestial heavens, the best way is to hug that young Master Mu's thigh. Fan Wuji understood and said, "But young Master Mu does not have the power to inspect, so we have to borrow young Master Mu's power to seize Prince Bo Jun's power. Let young Master Mu appear and pressure Prince Bo Jun, and use this to pass the celestial heavens inspection.